Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your presence and participation for yet another session. This 3D Graphy Medical 2022, which had a very good start in the morning with all the medical association heads and office bearers from AOMSI and Indian Orthopedic Association, and also Association of Healthcare Providers of India, Dr. Girdhar Gyani being the chief guest. And then also various other respondents from various different associations, name it OPAI, that is also Orthotics and Prosthetic Association of India. So the idea was to have these associations actively get to know about what this technology can offer them as end users in terms of benefiting from the technology. So it's a privilege to have all of you again to share the subject on 3D technologies for dental and medical. So let me take the opportunity to invite James Murky. James is from Verteezy, is a company offering solutions in 3D simulations for dental, very specifically. And he's joining from Turkey now. So this being a global platform, it's a great opportunity to connect with respondents across the globe. I will also have Dr. Zaid Natu, who is the founder of Simple VRDU, who is also into simulation and also been working in this area in terms of offering solutions. Mostly these are institutional solutions that he is offering in 3D visualization, AR and VR. And also Ms. Parinika Sengupta, who is the head design for Anatomize, being one of the companies offering solutions in 3D and also POC. And also I have Mr. Irai Mudi, who is the head healthcare with Sri Rapid, who is one of the companies offering 3D printing solutions and also 3D software solutions. Softwares like Geomagic is one software that they're offering with haptic device. So may I now invite Dr. Zaid. Zaid, you can start the proceedings with the first presenter, James, to present. And Dr. Zaid is the moderator of the session. Subsequent to all the sessions, in the end, we will also have a discussion, talking about what are the prospects of this technology and how it is actually gaining traction for the medical industry going forward. Dr. Zaid, the stage is all yours. And then subsequently, Dr. James to make the first presentation. Your thoughts, Dr. Zaid, and then we'll start with James. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. John. I would ask James to directly dive in because I think we are 9 minutes late into the session. So, and I'll try to chip in between as and when needed.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Zaid. Thank you, Shiru John. So thank you everyone for being here. It's my pleasure. As I said, I'm calling in today actually from Turkey. We've got some installations this last week. So let me get up my slides and let me introduce you to some of the innovative stuff we've been doing at Verteezy Dental by Haptic Reality Virtual. So just to give you some background, our company is based in France and we're technology experts. We work with haptics, motion capture analysis, as well as virtual reality and everything else we can get our hands on. We have 3 main activities: Kotos, connected bicycles in retirement homes. We've got around 70 retirement homes in France. Neo, which is ergonomic analysis in industry. And we have some amazing partners like Coca-Cola. We just got Rolex in Switzerland and Leroy Merlin in France. And of course, Verteezy Dental that uses haptics, and we've just introduced full virtual reality. The reason I mentioned some of these other topics, but we're actually doing a collaboration between Verteezy and Nao, 2 of our companies, to introduce ergonomic analysis into dental training as well. Because as dentists, we all have posture issues if we're not performing treatments correctly. But with Verteezy Dental, we've got a development team dedicated in France, and we've got some people in London for this as well. But as most of you know, the sort of majority of training that goes on is using plastic teeth and then going on to treat and really practice on real patients. So that's what we're trying to overcome with this technology. And the way that we train is a mixture of haptics, which gives you the force feedback as you're taking this tool here. And the fact that we can control the algorithms, we can control the force that it sends you, means that we can replicate the feeling that you're drilling through enamel, you're drilling through dentine, and then you're dropping through to the pulp. So this allows you to really feel what's going on and not just learn the theory, but practice the actual practice of it. So we blend this in with simulation and now virtual reality headsets. We also have exports with 3D printing. But this is what's changed everything really, is the investment really since Metaverse became something big. We got some investment from the company behind the game Fortnite, which allowed us to rebuild everything. And we're relaunching this year with a new simulator. There's a brand new haptics integration. So this is really giving you that fine detail as you're drilling. And the integration of that with a brand new simulation that's built on the Unreal Engine. And to go along with that is brand new simulator design as well. So everything's been redone from the hardware to the software to the machine you see in front of you. And the beauty of this is the integration of virtual reality for the first time really in this type of training. And we've got one simulator, but the second screen, the bottom one, the surgery screen, is actually removable. Because what we're doing is we're working with Epic Games, we're working with Facebook or now Meta to introduce hand tracking using the cameras on the VR headsets. So by removing that second traditional screen, that allows you to see what you're actually touching, hold the handpiece, and then we're hoping to give you feedback on your technique as well. So that's an ongoing project. This does cover all types of dental treatments from restorative class 1 to class 5, right through to implantology. And we've just added in deciduous temporary teeth for children, and we're working on a child patient as well. And so unique features. This is where we've actually introduced an integration with 3D printing. So if you have 3D printers in your university, you can use them alongside the virtual training. So these are the 3D blocks that were actually used for some examinations, some assessments in the University of Sheffield in the UK. And it was to do a control study against some assessments that we've introduced onto the virtual simulators. So that's where you can actually create an exercise on these simulators. You can do them with the virtual reality headsets, but the 3D model that you create, you can actually export it and then use that to print it from your 3D printers and then have that alongside the virtual training. So you have two different aspects which they pick up slightly different motor skills from. And of course, and I'll show you some of the videos from this, the introduction of real VR for the first time into the simulation. So it's the VR integrated with the haptics so you can do them at the same time. And this is what it looks like. So this exercise is for endodontics. It's an access cavity preparation. And you see there we've got our simulator that can be used with both screens or just one. The student puts the virtual reality headset on, they connect it up to our system, and then they just go ahead and choose whatever type of exercise it is they want to complete. We're integrating virtual iPads into the simulation. So you're sitting around your patient, then you're able to use that iPad to select the type of tools you want to work with. You're able to calibrate your position so you can actually move around the patient and where you'd sit naturally. You can adjust your height, so you can adjust the height of your chair within the simulation as well. And you see there we have a second iPad, which is used sort of like loops. It gives you a magnification on the area you want to zoom in on, and you can move that around the scene as well. And this is the beauty of the virtual reality really, is allowing us to go inside the dental room with a virtual patient, and then we've got the actual haptics. So then you're able to pick up a real tool within your hand and then use that with your simulation, with your virtual patient. And because you're immersed in it, you can actually feel like you're touching the teeth. See there, we're doing calibration of our position with it. And then you actually touch the teeth, you feel it, and because you're immersed in virtual reality, all those motor skills you'll be learning naturally as if you were practicing on a phantom head or if you were treating a real patient. But obviously the beauty of this is that we can make mistakes. we can click that reset button and we can redo the exercise 100 times over if we need to. And we're practicing on patients, virtual patients that is. But we can do damage and then we can reset. We can learn from our mistakes, which is probably the most important thing of all of this, before we then go on to treat real patients in real life. And now you'll see on this top iPad, there's the real-time evaluation. So here, as you're drilling into the teeth, you actually see it updated as to whether you're drilling into the part you're meant to be removing. And then you get loads of statistical feedback as well. You can see how much of the material you've removed, your accuracy, how much total, so the progress you're making as well. And so this simulation will continue. You can click reset, you can choose the type you want. You can see there we've gained access into the pulp chamber. And then we're able to review all of our work on this iPad. And then we're able to complete it and finish the exercise. And then we get a 3D model of the work that we've done. We're able to set the students questions from the teachers, so how they think they've done if they were grading themselves. And then self-reflection. So it's like a learning diary based on the GDC, the General Dental Council, and it allows them to feed back to themselves how they think their depth control was, for instance, whether their posture was optimal or requires improvement, and there the flatness of the floor and the relative smoothness. And then as a teacher, we can go back in, we can review their work, we can review their results, but we can also review how they think they've done from a technical point of view, and then review that and give them our own feedback as well. So it's super exciting technology, everything that's changed really in the last couple of years. And you see, we're already there in terms of a classroom integration as well. So this is the University of Turin in Italy. And you see that the virtual reality headsets are completely optional on these simulators. They've all got them. They don't have to be used. But you also see that from the teacher PC here, we're actually streaming the image exactly from that simulator in real time to the teacher's PC. So they can get an overview of their class and see what they're seeing from this PC. They've also got two really exciting pieces of software. And so this one, for instance, you have patient-specific integrations, huge amount of technology going into it, and we're able to import patient scans. So here we're taking a CT scan, we're completing a segmentation, and then we're able to set up the 3D model, the haptics. We're able to set up an exercise how we wish, so we can actually add in a caries into this, or for this one specifically, it's implantology. And then you'll see we're able to choose the implant, we're able to plan it, we're able to base it on the length, the diameter of the implant that we wish to use. And then we're able to click and drag, click and rotate. And then we're setting up some of the central nerves there as well. And then finally, we can give evaluation criteria for the students and set it up like an examination if we wish. And then we're able to set up toolkit and give the students access to only specific tools if we want to. Or we can give them a free choice of all of them, so then we can assess the types of tools they're picking and whether they're the right ones for the type of treatment that we're doing. And then we just export this into the type of category that it is. And so that's the software on the teacher PC. And now to show you a live classroom. So this was the one that you saw the photos of the University of Turin in Italy. We've got a number of universities which have early adopted this hardware from us, which includes Turin in Italy, GSL in India, BAU here in Turkey, which is where I'm visiting, Zaudin University in Pakistan, and Universidad de Desarrollo in Chile, which is where I'll actually be next week doing an installation as well. So you see there the virtual reality, the 3D mouse, the real-time evaluation, tracking device for the mirror. And with the University of Turin in Italy, we're working on microendodontic surgeries as well. And so this is the digital workflow. So this is where students learn in their first year the theory. They use these machines. They go back and forth through your phantom heads. And like I say, you can integrate the 3D printing with that, which is really exciting. We can take the patient scan, put that in the simulator, they practice, they get their feedback, they improve, and then they go on to actually treat those patients in real life. So like say you can integrate all of this in your classroom with your scanners, with your 3D printers, with your other LMS software, learning management software. And this is brand new, which is what we're launching a little bit later this year as well, is desktop simulation from Unisim. So we've done some trials in the last few years. And this is Edema in Spain. And these are desktop machines that are a lot more affordable and allow you to reach a lot more students as well. We also had a portable one that was used during the pandemic, so it could be sent home to students. And Edema plans to use it for an international master's, one of the first ones for dentistry. And here you can see it in practice. So they have 2 of our big simulators there at the back of the room and 10 of our desktop simulators used for preclinical dental training. And so these are in place in Spain and with the NHS in Manchester. So it's great to be working with governments as well. We're looking at doing them for entry exams for foreign dentists with the NHS potentially, and in the States entry exams into universities as well. And so you see there, the virtual reality works with all of these machines as well. We've got prototypes using the virtual reality for things like anesthesia, which is coming along, and they're a little flyover from inside their room. And so that was the prototype, and now in September this year, we've got the official version ready for export. We've already seen some universities with you in India, in Pakistan, and in Chile as well, that have put in some letters of intent for this. Like I said, it's due in September, and we've got one there with 1 haptics, the VR headset, and another model with 2 haptics and the VR headset. So it's integrated into the simulator, really nice design. There's obviously a huge amount of advantages to having a full high fidelity simulator, but these new desktop simulators are space efficient, they're integrated, you just plop them on one of your desks, and of course they're more affordable. You can roughly get 2 times the amount of simulators for the same budget. And the thing that's super interesting with this is integrating your desktop with your high fidelity in the same classroom, and then connecting to your 3D printers, your scanners, and your other learning software as well. And so already in India, we entered with Savifa Dental College, and they've got a wonderful clinic here, you see, with the traditional phantom heads and some of this virtual training at the back. And GSL with the brand new simulator and with the virtual reality simulation as well. You can see there, the first time we got the simulator out, a whole crowd of students came running to see what all the fuss was about, to try out the virtual reality. And this is the other side of VR, really, is that it's making training more engaging. It's making students want to get involved in dentistry, and it's making them want to get involved in technology and improving it for the future. So that's really an overview of us and what we've been doing. We're a very small family-run company, but we have reached into 23 different countries. We're in 55 universities, and we've had 11,000 students go through Vertizi training. So although we might be a small company, we're certainly all over the world at the moment, and it's amazing to meet so many people who are so interested and so engaged in improving dental training and integrating it with all the other technologies in the universities. So thank you very much. I hope it's been interesting, and I'll pass you back to Dr. Said.
Thank you so much, James, for the crisp session.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
James, would you like to touch on how difficult was it, how difficult or easy was it initially when you introduced this thing to the universities?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's been a very long road to get to where we are today, to get the sort of buy-in and to be there for the technology. I mean, we started this in 2007 originally, so that takes you shows you how old we are, really. And I mean, the first commercial version was still in 2015. So you think that was already, 8 years later? Then we worked through version 0, the prototype, version 1, and it wasn't until we got the investment from Epic Games in 2020 that's then allowed us to work on this. But after COVID, I think everybody's seen the advantages of simulation training and how it saved people who couldn't even open the clinics to get practice for their students. So yeah, it's been a long road, but it feels like we're finally here, and it feels like simulation's taking off as countries start to open up again to the world.
Great. James, how different can you compare and contrast with the traditional clinical skills training modules or the equipments that are used as against the high fidelity dental simulators?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's always advantages to using some of the conventional training. Things like phantom heads give you the experience of water spray, gives you the experience of heat, gives you the experience of getting ready for the clinic, setting everything up, getting your gloves on, and performing the treatment. But of course, the advantages of the simulation training are that we're able to create situations that you're just not able to create in your conventional training labs. For instance, we have the virtual patient. We're starting to add the animations. So she's starting to move, she breathes. It's a lot more lifelike. And we're able to create high-risk situations that you just might not see very often in the real clinics. So they allow you to practice on these high-risk cases, the ones that don't happen so often. And it allows us to tackle really specific specialities like microendodontics, and practice on child patients, for instance, with deciduous teeth.
That is interesting indeed. And how is it economically viable? Do you face that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, that is the biggest challenge of simulation training, to be perfectly honest, is the investment that it costs to get the hardware, specifically the haptics, is very advanced technology. Obviously, in terms of the costs we're reducing in the university, once you've had the initial outlay, then you don't have your consumable cost. You've only got the electricity. You don't have the plastic teeth that you have to keep rebuying. You don't have the water. You don't have all the stuff around the clinic that is very costly. So once the initial outlay is done, the cost comes down. And that's really where we looked at the desktop simulators as well. So there's a lot of haptic simulators, both in medical and in dental fields. And the idea is if we can have a generic platform that runs all these different simulations, then for one big university or one big simulation center, you only need to invest in the hardware once, but then you get the advantages for your dental training, for your dental hygienist training, and eventually for your surgery training and all your different medical topics.
Okay. Are the haptics different for restorative prosthetic procedures as against surgical scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, we've got different haptics on the different simulators. So we have high fidelity simulators, which have really powerful specific haptics, which go up to really high forces. So we can replicate things like drilling into bone, for instance. And then we've got the more entry-level haptics, which is a lot more preclinical. So they're limited more to your restorative, your endodontics, your prosthodontics, and then they're limited before we go on to things like implantology. So it's really choosing the hardware, the equipment to match the specialities that you want to be able to train with now and for the future.
Excellent. So I think VertiZ has an entire range of high fidelity simulators, and that is what sets the company, the technology apart from the rest of the contemporaries. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you. I would take this opportunity to request any of the panelists if they have any questions, any interactions with James. Dr. Mani, Parinita, Ayushi, any questions?
I'm sorry, I joined only midway through the presentation, so I wasn't able to listen to the whole presentation. But it did appear very interesting, and I think, as you rightly pointed out, the cost might be the biggest barrier to sort of take this up in our setting. But we have explored simulation of various kinds in training students, and I'm sure this is going to be the future. You're not going to be able to practice on real students a lot going into the future. So I'm sure this is going to be the future of medical training, no doubt about it. I wish I was able to be there for the entire presentation, so I'm sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you, Doc. Thank you. James, just a couple of pointers. One is, in the future, are we looking at creating standardization in terms of assessment, licensing, validation, like in the flight simulation industry, in the aviation industry?
Yeah, I mean, that's the holy grail, really. And I mean, what's nice is that we're starting to engage with governments. So I think that's steps in the right direction. We've got the first validated assessments, which are validated by university to match their exam criteria. And then the next stage is really to get on, a more international reglementation of it. So looking at with ADE, for instance, the Association of Dental Education, both in Europe and in America. But like I say, the first project really with the NHS in Manchester in the UK. If we're able to get a government on board that shows they can actually sign off dentists that are coming from abroad to practice on patients, then that's really going to flung the door open to this sort of standardized assessment that we all want to see in the future.
Sounds awful. And what do you have to? What are your thoughts on the pricing? How do you think it will unfold for the future?
Yeah, I mean,
do you think the pricing will come down?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different avenues we can go down. One is that if there's sort of a certain point, a certain level of universities that get involved, then that gives us the economies of scale to buy in bulk, to prepare these simulators in advance, which then brings the average cost down. So that will bring us just from the economies of scale from it. And then we've got other avenues, things such as rental equipment. So we could have annual licenses for the software, because that's a huge part of it, is the fact that we're having to continuously develop the software. So we need to have enough margin to pay a full development team to be doing this. And then next is, once we get standardized results, for instance, do we then say that the simulation's good enough that it then doesn't need the advancements in the updates, the advancements in the software as quickly? And then if we can reduce the cost of development, then we can reduce the entire cost of the purchase as well. So it depends on what inflection point we get to. Is it the number of universities? Is it the standardization? Or is it a change in business model where we rent the equipment, for instance, and you have it for a year, or you're renting the software and you're having an annual license as opposed to a perpetual license? Or are we having universities buy the equipment themselves and create their own haptic simulators, and then we only sell them the software? But the answer to which one it would be, I don't know for the moment.
Great. Nicely articulated. Thank you, James. Thank you for the wonderful session.
No, thank you.
Thank Thank you, panelist. James, I would now like to invite Dr. Mani. Dr. Mani, are you ready with your presentation?
Yeah, I'm ready. So, a surgeon who goes in well dressed into the hospital at the start of the day, pardon me, often is completely exhausted and broken at the end of a complex surgery. I'm really sorry. So, it's important that we plan the surgery well so that the surgeon goes and executes it as quickly as possible during the surgery. And this is where 3D modeling comes to help us out. Now, how did the 3D bug actually bite me? The year was 2017, and I was a pediatric cardiac trainee in Australia. And that was when Microsoft came up with 3D models in Office. Like I had an Office 365 account, and there was a mail one day saying you can now insert 3D models into Office. And I thought that was something really cool, something which I can put in my PowerPoint presentation. And when I tried one of the stock images available on the Office platform, I could actually show the heart beating. And this I thought was a really cool innovation. So I decided to try it out in what we call as a joint cardiac conference. So this is, the expectation is this is a meeting which happens every week in all pediatric cardiac units, where everybody involved in the care of a child with a heart condition, the cardiologist, the cardiac surgeon, the anesthetist, the radiologist, everybody discuss every child which they have seen the previous week or who's going to come for surgery the next week. And the expectation is you think that, there's robust discussion, everybody trying to form a plan which delivers the best possible care for a child. But often these meetings are really mundane. 95% of work is something which everybody knows what to do about, and they just need to sign it off. It's only 5% of the work which is really interesting and which involves a lot of discussion. Now, whenever any new technology reaches the market, it need not be medical, it can be anything. It has to go through these 5 phases. Initially there is a phase where the traditionalists or the Puritans, they look at it and they just write it off, saying this has absolutely no role, I'm not going to take it up. And then as it keeps staying where it is, the people have a look and they say, no, these are my preconditions. Only if it satisfies all the preconditions, I'll take this up. And then slowly they realize its value and start adapting it, which is when it starts taking off in reality. And then there is a point where it reaches maturity, where a sufficient quorum of people are convinced that this technology has value. And once that point is reached, that is where consumption takes off. And then, the entire world opens up to this technology. 3D printing in congenital heart, modeling and printing in congenital heart disease is now entering that stage of maturation. And in the very near future, you will see that the consumption of this technology is going to increase multifold, as is explained in this review article, which appeared early last year. Now we have very well-defined utility for 3D modeling and printing in congenital heart diseases. What are these? The wow factor still remains. So, supposing you show a 3D model and explain what needs to be done, everybody is going to be impressed. Yes, so I'm not denying that. But there's also real clinical utility. It helps us make surgical decisions. Instead of looking at a screen, if you can print the heart out and hold it in your hand and see what are the various ways in which you can fix it, that makes it more realistic. It also allows for surgical simulation. You can print out a model and the surgeon can practice what exactly he needs to do. And you can also create computer-aided designs of the various possible surgeries which can be done to decide which is the best possible method to fix it. as we did in this particular case. So here you can see the heart. You can see two blood vessels running, one on the left and one on the right. The one on the right is a normal vessel, but the one on the left is an abnormal vessel. It should not be there. So how do you make it come over to the right instead of being on the left side of the heart? Now, there are multiple methods which we thought might work. We thought we can create a tube between the right vessel and the left vessel. We thought we might detach the left vessel from the heart and put it onto the right side. And we thought there might be a way of bringing it over to the right side inside the heart instead of doing it outside the heart. And when we looked at all the options and we created computer-aided designs, we realized that option 2, which is disconnecting this vessel from the heart and putting it to the right side, is probably the simplest and had the best chance of success. It also has immense educational value, especially in something called hands-on surgical training, which I'm going to explain in the next slide. But it also has value in teaching students about the various heart diseases available. It is also of immense value in patient education. So I know of some units in the West where whenever there is a heart disease, they print the heart of that patient out and then they explain it on the model to the family as well as the child, and then they let them take the model home with them. So as they can hold it as a souvenir. They can also use it to explain to their relatives about what has been done to their child or what. Now you can see here that a surgeon is actually operating on the heart of a child who has a heart problem. So he's examining the various parts of the heart. He's opening it, trying to find out where the hole is. But in reality, he's actually sitting in his office and he is operating on a very real looking 3D model of the surgery he's going to do the very next day. So he's looking at where exactly the hole is. He is closing the hole and then he's cutting open a small vessel to make it large. So this has immense value in training surgeons to do heart surgery. One of the early adapters of this methodology was the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto in Canada. So they actually did 12 monthly sessions every month. They chose one heart disease and they let their trainee surgeons operate on the 3D model. So they did it on multiple occasions. So on the first occasion, there was a senior surgical surgeon, whom they called a proctor, who would demonstrate the procedure, and then they let the trainee attempt 1 or 2 times. And then when they asked them to, and they found that with repeated attempts, the skill actually improved. The trainees were more confident, they were able to do the surgery faster, and their outcomes were better. And when they asked them to do the surgery again, a year later, they found that the speed as well as the skill were maintained even after a 1 to 2 year delay. With that, I'll go to the last part of my talk, which is the case examples to show what is really possible even in an Indian scenario. This was a 14-month-old girl with a complex congenital heart disease. So when the child was seen in the newborn period, the newborn period is when the baby is just born, less than a month old. It was thought that the heart disease was very complex, that it cannot be completely fixed. It was thought that the hole was too large and cannot be closed. And so they did what was called a palliative surgery. So they did a surgery which allowed the child to breathe normally and allowed the child to feed and grow with a view to hopefully doing a full surgery later in life. But the surgeon was very skeptical that he would be able to do the full surgery. He thought this was too complex. And because of this, he kept delaying the final surgery. He was afraid he might lose the child while trying to fix the heart. So we were discussing the various surgical options. And then I suggested that we do a 3D model based on a CT scan of the child. So we got this 3D model. You can see the various parts of the heart. You can see that I can rotate the heart, look at it from behind, from above, and from below as well. and see the various parts of the heart. But the main problem is actually inside the heart. So this is just fancy stuff. But the real utility is that I can actually remove a part of the heart. So I can actually make one part of the heart translucent, or even completely remove it so that I can look at what is inside the heart. So I can completely remove the front part of the heart and peep in to see where exactly the hole is. And then I can even zoom in. If you add this to a VR tool, you can actually zoom in reality as well, in virtual reality as well, to see where, have a closer look at the heart. So you can see me zooming into the screen to have a closer look inside the heart. And this is where the real utility is. I was trying to trace the hole inside the heart, so you can see me tracing the hole. And then I reached this point where I wasn't sure how the hole was continuing. Now, I would probably initially have thought it's going down straight, but in a 3D model, it allowed me to look at a different plane, and I realized the hole is actually here, not straight down. So again, when I reach a point of doubt, again, I rotate and see that the hole has a different extension here. So 3D modeling allowed me to see the hole in multiple dimensions, and point out to the surgeon where exactly he has to suture close the hole. So the surgeon actually did this surgery, and then he came back and told me that if I had not pointed out that this was where the hole is, he would have actually closed it in this plane, which would have been a completely wrong thing. So the 3D model actually saved the day for all of us. So especially this part, the surgeon came back and said, if you had not pointed this out to me preoperatively, I would not have been able to close it. The entire heart was probably the size of the surgeon's thumb and middle finger and index finger put together. So you can imagine how small it is and how difficult it is to make out these borders in real life. And this is a photo of the baby recovering after surgery. The surgery happened 3.5 months ago, and she's doing really well till now. Now, with that, I'm going to the second case example. This was a 17-year-old boy from a very backward district in Tamil Nadu. His entire family are daily laborers, and except for one elder brother, three alive siblings of his, all had very similar features. All of them were very tall, thin. They had very thin chest walls, and they had long fingers. Most doctors who see this would immediately recognize this to be a condition called Marfan syndrome. Now, Marfan syndrome is a condition where the aorta, which is the main blood vessel from the heart, which takes blood to the entire body, is very large. And being large, it's also very thin, and it has a risk of what is called a condition called aortic dissection. This is where the aorta can just tear completely along the lines which I am trying to show through this GIF. So, and when the aorta tears suddenly, the patient is at a risk of dying. And the death is sudden and sometimes cannot be prevented. And this is what had happened to multiple family members. So you can see that this boy's mother was also tall with long limbs, and she died suddenly at 35 years of age. He had two elder siblings, a girl and a boy, both of whom had tall, long limbs, and both of whom died between 20 to 25 years of age. He had an elder brother who was normal. He was tall with long limbs. He had a large aorta, and he based on his family history and him being 17, he was at a risk of suddenly dying in the next 5 to 6 years. He had two younger sisters, both of whom were tall with long limbs and who had large aortas, and who remained at risk of dying suddenly. So we did a genetic testing and found out what exactly was the reason for the big blood vessels as well as the sudden death in the family. Now that gave us an answer to what was causing the problem. We still had to solve the problem. And the solution to the problem was ensuring that he did not die suddenly. This was a daunting task. What were the options we had? The first was giving medicines alone. Now, the medicines might reduce the risk of sudden death, but they don't completely eliminate it. And somebody with such a bad family history, it is well accepted that relying on medicines alone will not solve our problem. The solution which is used widely world over for this condition is to replace the aorta with artificial material. But this would involve a major surgery, and this would involve taking blood thinning medications throughout the patient's life. And for somebody from such a backward area and with significant economic constraints, this option had its own set of challenges, and the feasibility was slightly in doubt. So when we are looking for alternate options, we considered what is called a PS operation. Now, PS stands for Personalized External Aortic Root Support. So here we get a CT or a MR scan of the aorta, the blood vessel, and then using a patented material, we create a sleeve specific to this patient's blood vessel. So we create a sleeve made of a patented material which can then be fixed around the blood vessel, and this will prevent it from enlarging further and thinning out further. So this is what we do. We get the CT or the MR scan, we 3D model it, print out a plastic model of this, and then we use the patent material and suture it around the model so that it conforms to the patient's requirement, and then we go and fix the sleeve on the patient's blood vessel. And as this figure shows, this can be personalized to any extent possible. So if it's only the bottom part which is large, you can make it that way. If the top part is large, you can make it that way as well. Any amount of permutation and combination is possible with this technology. And that is exactly what we did. We sort of 3D modeled his aorta, and as you look around the various parts of the aorta, you wonder whether this was the reason why it was called a PS operation, because the aorta does resemble the fruit pear. No, the path is not at all rosy. There are significant limitations with this technology. Like before 3D technology was available, we had sort of, both cardiologists and surgeons, we had figured out a way of understanding the three-dimensional anatomy using just two-dimensional imaging. And there's not enough yes, it does look much simpler with 3D technology, but whether the additional cost, time and effort involved really adds up to something substantial has not been proven yet. 3D modeling and printing processes, although they become more simplified than they were a decade ago, still involves a lot of time as well as cost. The currently available materials, they don't really resemble the true heart completely, although there is a lot of improvement on that front happening. And we are not able to, the large structures we can simulate on the 3D model, but really tiny structures within the heart, what we call as valves and subvalvular apparatus. We have not still figured a way of incorporating them in the 3D model, but there is work going on in each of these limitations, trying to improve them. And people are also looking at 3D bioprinting, 3D printing a material which can just directly go into the patient. And hopefully that will be the future. This will happen in the not too far future. Hopefully it will be in the near future. Now, as far as 3D printing in congenital heart disease is the Indian scenario, I think there's one large center in Kochi, my alma mater, Amrita Institute of Medical Sciences. They're probably the biggest players as far as congenital heart disease 3D modeling and printing is. But unfortunately, it's a point of care model, so it only caters to their own patients. They don't do it a lot for patients outside their own patients. I think there are 3D Graphy is there in Mumbai. As far as I'm aware, there's one other commercial player in Ahmedabad who does 3D modeling for other institutes. And then they sort of cater for the entire country. So there are vast stretches of the country which do not have a service. And as I said, we have probably already reached the maturation stage. And if somebody is interested in taking it up, you have a huge market where there are no real players at all. And it's not just limited to India. The rest of South Asia and even Southeast Asia do not have this technology. And it is possible to cater to other parts of the world as well, sitting in your desk, because most of this can be done offline. So I hope I've sort of inspired a few people to take this up with my talk. And thank you once again to the organizers for giving me this opportunity. I'm happy to take any questions which you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Mani. That was a really impressive session. I would kindly encourage the audience and the panelists to please come up with questions.
Yeah, so Doctor, thank you so much for your insights and your inputs. My first question to you, Doctor, would be now that you have been able to offer these solutions in your area of specialization, you did mention about the POC. So are you saying that right now, when it is confined to certain centers, it's going to be very confined to them as a hospital, or that's a challenge today? So if one hospital sets up a POC, you mean to say that they will not be able to offer you the solution, is it?
So there are two reasons why they are limiting themselves to just a point of care model. The first reason is there are very few trained people who can do it. So I think Dr. Mahesh Kapanial, whom Shibu knows very well, is the person heading the lab. And this is not his only work. He has clinical work to do. He has other interests as well. So he has a limited time available. Even though the technology is there with him, he has limited time available to dedicate to it. And this limited time, his own patients get priority. And only if he has additional time to devote to it beyond his own patients, will he be able to accept patients from outside. And that is the major limiting factor for him to do it. And if you look at other centers, the reason why they are not investing in this technology is the cost involved. So especially with the heart, you have to look inside the heart. If you look at bones and the teeth, most the modeling is on the outside of the bone or the teeth. So whereas for the heart you need to look inside, and for that a prime requisite is to make the heart hollow so that you can look inside. And most of the 3D modeling softwares available at a lower cost do not do that. So the only software which sort of does that in a good way is Mimics, which is made by Materialize, who are the industry leaders as far as 3D modeling softwares are concerned. And Mimics costs a bomb, which most centers will not be able to invest in. So, centers which have the money do not have enough people with expertise to contribute, and centers which may have people with expertise don't have the money to invest in the technology. So you need both to go hand in hand to cater to a wide audience, and that should not be difficult going in. I'm sure, if there are enough takers for this, it will be possible to bring down the cost.
No, you're right, doctor. Now
people can pool resources, and 10 people can come together, and then the cost becomes much less than what it is for one person.
Very true, doctor. Very true. In fact, the larger intent. In fact, we had some of the key respondents in the morning that we had discussed with in the inauguration. So now there is a strategic, feedback that we have been able to get from most of the centers and also hospitals. Now we had the chief guest as Dr. Girdhar Gyani, who is joined. So we are actually working on a pilot project to start with 70 hospitals in the country to set up these POCs. See, the idea is, one is economies of scale, doctor. That's been a challenge. I'm sure no technology is, cheap. It does. Obviously, for technology companies, it's also taken some time for us to build that research and get these products out. So obviously, the kind of money and involvement that they would have put would definitely have taken their course in terms of their energy, resource, revenue, money, all of that. But where I see is, economies of scale. So while we were discussing, our larger intent is also to look at democratization of 3D technology to benefit all. That's the motto for us to take things forward. And we are seeing a very good sign from the ministry also that we are actually in touch with some key respondents to take the course forward. So, as you rightly said, you should be, well placed or in a situation to get those required solutions very timely, and it should also be cost efficient in terms of ensuring the end mile, the person who is looking at that solution should be benefiting. I mean, benefiting in a sense, it should be more interactive and it should be more feasible for them. Cost is always a challenge. So we are working on that, doctor. I mean, I think the larger intent is also to see that how everybody benefits from the process going forward.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I think the government can be a key player in this.
Exactly.
Because the government can sort of invest in the technology and allow access to a wide group of people, who can take this technology to a much larger pool of patients who need it. So, they can, government involvement will actually increase the scope and the reach of such an effort rather than just private players, trying to sort things out, at least in the initial phase. And once people realize the value, then everybody will adapt it quickly.
Very true. Very true, doctor. Thank you so much. I think you had shared some great applications. I mean, where this technology can be useful in some complicated cases in terms of what was achieved. So congratulations for the efforts made. And
thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and let me leave it to Dr. Zaid to then take the course forward. Dr. Zaid, you can take the course forward.
I shall now invite Ms. Pariniti Sen Gupta, who is the Head of Design and Development at Anatomies 3D. Pariniti, are we okay with the session?
Yeah, sure. We can take the session. Great. So just give me a minute. I'll put on my screen.
All right. Take your time. No problem.
Is the screen visible?
Oh, yes, it is.
Great. So thank you, 3D Graphy, for having me over, and I would quickly begin the session. So basically, I'm here to speak about the different technologies that we have in the dental and medical field coming up. I would like to first give a quick background about my company, that is Anatomized 3D. I have been associated with Anatomized 3D for the last 4 years. Our major focus is to provide customization of surgical procedures through 3D modeling and 3D printing for improved patient outcomes, along with providing defect-based models to medical institutes. We work in pretty much every specialization that can be imaged, and in over 1,700 cases that we have done, we have helped save about 13,000 hours cumulatively. So how do we basically do this? We convert the patient 2D CT and MRI datasets to 3D computer-based and physical models that are used by surgeons to plan a surgery and thus help decide a more personalized treatment for their patients. We can further customize the tools that are going to be needed, such as planned cutting guides, splints, and also further to replace the resected area, we can also look at custom implants. So moving forward, let us look at the process flow. The general process flow is a 6-step process, wherein firstly, it always comes down to data acquisition. So what do we need in data acquisition? For a good quality 3D reconstruction, we need a proper CT MRI data. Now, when I use the term proper, I mean there are certain parameters that are very critical in 3D reconstruction. So these properties are minimum slice thickness, having an isotropic resolution, and uniform slice increment. Once the data set meets our requirement, we process and move to the next stage. That is the case planning. So the first and second step, that is data acquisition and data upload, is the MRI, getting the MRI done of the patient. Generally, we prefer sharing the protocols that are necessary for the scanning so that we avoid as much as possible the repetition of scan for the patient. And once we receive it, we start with the case planning. In this stage, we generally analyze the data at our end. We first try and understand what could be the issue with the patient. We try and get the bone thickness analysis and the soft tissue available around the defect or the disease and try and get an overall perspective. Basis this, we create a basic reconstruction and share a very preliminary plan from our end with the medical team. Now, once the medical team gives their insights on what is exactly they are looking forward to, maybe a model, a cutting guide, a plate, or like a implant, we take it forward and start with the product design. So in this stage, we include the software wherein we try and simulate the exact margins or the cut sections that the surgeon would take. We replace the resected bone with the anatomy or the design that needs to be placed and give the simulation as a final approval. Now, once we have the final approval of the design, that is when we move towards 3D printing. Now, what is 3D printing exactly? As the name suggests, 3D printing, also known as additive manufacturing, is a method of generation of 3D models. So basically, a CAD design that you feed into a computer gets printed layer by layer and is either deposited, joined, or solidified under computer control to create a three-dimensional object. Now, these materials can be anywhere between filament, liquid, or powder. So basically, these raw products or raw materials in the form of a filament or a liquid resin or a powder gets added on or fused to each other layer by layer and forms your physical component. Now, 3D printing offers us a multiple options of material. So you can either have a rigid monochrome or a rigid multicolor model, or even look forward to flexible monochrome or flexible multicolor models. So rigid models are generally preferred when we are looking at bones, and flexible monochrome or flexible multicolor is generally for soft tissue. But sometimes, since budget or cost is a constraint, we can also look at making it more cost effective with going for a rigid model even for soft tissues. Now coming to 3D technology. Each 3D printer runs on the basis of a certain technology. Today we're going to discuss a couple of technologies that are widely used in a day-to-day basis. These are FDM, SLA, SLS, CJP, and DMLS. You're currently seeing an FDM printer in action. The material is oozing off the nozzle and a layer is being laid onto the previous layer. So you have a 3D model of a character being printed. Now coming down to the working of an FDM. FDM 3D printing is a technology where an extrusion nozzle moves over a build platform. The process involves the use of a thermoplastic material. Now what are thermoplastics? Thermoplastics are a class of polymers that can be softened and melted for further applications in their either heat softened state or their liquid state. This thermoplastic is forced out of the extrusion system and is spread out on the build plate as per your CAD design, and then layer by layer the design is built on. Following the completion of one layer, the nozzle of the printer is lowered in order for the next layer of plastics to be added to the design. And this is how the part gets built up. And that's why the name additive manufacturing. That is one layer being added onto the next. Now there are a lot of different polymers used such as ABS, PETG, and PEEK. The basic advantages of FDM, if I were to point out, are easy handling, cost effectiveness, and flexibility in material choice. One important characteristic of a 3D printer or 3D printing is that it also requires, apart from your actual part, it also requires something called as a support so that the model is generated. Support is generally added on to the part to give it, to ensure that there is no warping or there is no dimension loss, so that if there is an overhang or an extension or if the model is complex, it still retains its exact dimension. That is, the 1:1 model is achieved. Now here I would like to discuss some applications of FDM to show how and where we can use FDM in the medical field. The major application of FDM in the healthcare industry is to achieve anatomical models and make prototypes before it is considered for metal printing or mass manufacturing. Here are a few case studies. So on the left side of the screen, you can see a mandible model and a cleft reconstruction model. Basically, what we do is, as I've already highlighted, from the CT scan, a 3D reconstruction is being created, and this model is then printed as a monochrome FDM model so that the doctor can see the exact location of where the defect is, analyze of how they can approach it, and plan and pre-plan their surgery. Sometimes in cases where there is, the maxillofacial cases, wherein there could be chances of the soft tissue being minimum or the mucosa being lost, you can see a skin flap reconstruction being done. So what FDM does is, it also offers a filament range called as PPU. Now these are flexible filaments, which is slightly cost effective as compared to the other technologies, but still give you almost like the feel of the skin. This can be created like an only on top of the bone, and the surgeon can understand exactly the amount of soft tissue available and can decide if the implant or the part they're going to insert, post that, will they have enough soft tissue for closure. Likewise, you can see a tongue tumor model on the screen. This model helps to understand exactly what are the margins and what is the area to be excised. The best part about 3D modeling, as far as the application comes, is the possibility of superimposing soft tissue on top of hard tissue. That is, basically you can extract your MRI data from this MRI data soft tumor, and you can superimpose it on the bone. So here you can see the CT super MRI imposition in the model of pelvis. So what we have done here is, we have extracted the tumor from the MRI. Then using the tools, the 3D tools and the software, we have superimposed and made an onlay. And this fused model as a combination is 3D printed. This is actually printed as a monochrome model first, and then the tumor colored as per the doctor or the patient's requirement, and then we supply the model. Now, what does this help is, this helps exactly precisely plan the cut margins and ensure that the tumor removal is exact and accurate. You can also see a CV junction model being made on a very similar basis. First, a monochrome model is achieved, and then the vasculature is hand painted so that the differentiation between the arteries and the veins is visible, and the surgery, since that area is very delicate, can be pre-planned. You also see an example of a uterine fibroids model. Now, this was one of its first in India. We've also published a paper with Dr. Ruma Sinha, the consulting surgeon, wherein we extracted the uterine wall and the fibroids from the MRI and then hand painted the fibroids. This was used in addition to robotics for the surgeon to plan her incision and the removal of the fibroids. Another very important material that FDM offers is PEEK. Now, PEEK is much more flexible while retaining impressive strength, but the major characteristic of PEEK is that it is nearly identical to cortical bone's modulus, thus making it a very reliable alternative to alloplastic materials. PEEK's pure radiolucency is one of the primary reasons for its adoption as a biomaterial. Basis this simulation, since it's a two-stage simulation, there are two splints, that is one to set the mandibular advancement and then the other splint to set the final occlusion position. These splints are provided so that the simulation that we do on the software is exactly mimicked onto the patient, giving the best possible occlusion and aesthetic output. SLA can also be made as testing models. So the aorta that you're seeing on screen in the right section was printed for a device company which wanted to, try their valves that come in the market as on a model before bringing it out and making it commercial. Moving on to the next technology, that is SLS. SLS has some similarities with stereolithography. However, SLS makes use of a powdered material that is placed in a vat. For each layer, a powdered material is placed on top of the previous layer using a roller, and then the powdered material is laser sintered according to a certain pattern from the building object that we given as a feed. Interestingly, the portion of the powder material that is not sintered can be used as a support to the actual part, thus making this a zero-waste technology. The most common material for selective laser sintering, or SLS, is nylon. It is a highly capable biocompatible thermoplastic and is ideal for complex assemblies. SLS is ideal to make functional parts that have greater toughness and higher impact strength, and is an ideal choice of material for cutting guides and orthotics. So basically what you're currently seeing on screen is a pre-fibula flap surgery to begin with, that is on the left section of the slide. So it's an entire set of models. So the anatomy models, that is the mandible section and the fibula have been printed in FDM material. Whereas the cutting guides, since now nylon as a material is biocompatible, and the best part is it is also autoclavable, it gets printed, the guides get printed in the nylon material and are placed onto the patient body to get the precise cut sections and margins. And then, as per the simulation done, they are further contoured. So basically the recon model that we provide is for pre-contouring of the plate. So before the surgery, the plates can be pre-bent, and since we are giving the cutting guides, we know that the cut section or the fibula will be as per the simulated model, and the bend or the pre-contoured plate can easily fit onto the actual patient. This reduces the time drastically and gets precise aesthetic output. Now, the case below that you see of the pelvis tumor was again a very critical case. In this case, the tumor was just above the acetabulum cup. Here, the main agenda was to save the acetabulum joint. So we had a very narrow margin of 3 millimeters from the acetabulum cup. Using 3D simulation, we plan the cut precisely in such a manner that we take an angulated cut and remove the tumor precisely, but ensure that the joint is safe. And this is what was achieved through the cutting guide and the model. Now, cutting guides, or rather, I would say drilling guides, can also be made for scoliosis cases using SLS, as you can see here. Now, these spine guides help not only with the trajectory, but in the pre planning stage, since we are able to reconstruct the model, rotate it, and also measure the pedicle length, we're also able to precisely help the surgeon with the diameter of the screw that they can use. That is something that adds on with the technology, and this can be placed to get the precise direction, diameter, and length. SLS can also be used in orthotics in the form of cranial helmets. Basically, infants, or it's a congenital disease actually, that is cranial synostosis. It leads to an unusual or irregular shape of a skull in babies, and this can be corrected using helmet therapy. This helmet, since it has to be sturdy, lasting, and is supposed to come in contact with the patient for a good duration of time, that is 6 to 7 months, needs to also be biocompatible. And that is why SLS is the choice, and we 3D print it, and then further, there is addition of foaming and post processing, wherein we paint it, add characters, make it more child friendly, as I want to say, and take it forward. Coming on to the next technology, that is color jet printing. Color jet printing involves two major components basically. One is a core and the other being the binder. The binder is usually in liquid form and the build material is powder. So basically it's very similar to your SLS technology. You can see the mechanism also being very similar, wherein you have the powder bed, you have the roller that rolls or pushes the powder onto the bed. So this is your core material. Now the binder falls off the print head, that is through the inkjet print head. And this binder is basically colored, and this then helps layer addition. That is, it helps the core, one layer on top of the other, to get fused to each other and thus form the model. The build platform lowers with every subsequent layer, which is spread and printed, resulting a full colored three-dimensional model. So CJP, the major advantage of CJP is it is a technology that can already incorporate color for you. Like the previous technologies, as you will see, we had to either hand paint it or inject color for the models to enhance the visual effects of the model. But CJP as a technology itself presents you with a full colored model. As with other powder-based manufacturing methods, the object being printed are self-supported with the powder around it, and therefore even this is a zero-waste technology. Now, the best part about the materials that come in CJP, which is the commonly used material, is gypsum. So it gives you the feel of hard bone, and when you drill it, it gives you the feel of particle bone. So the training models that we generally make, CJP is the preferred technology because this gives you a proper hands-on experience when you're trying to drill the model. It is also good for patient-specific anatomy model or patient education models, wherein you can have the color-coded model being presented, as you can see in the case of the kidney model. So you have the artery, the renal vein, all color-coded, so as to get the perfect visual effect and understand the extent of the artery and the vein within the kidney. Coming to the last technology that we have to discuss today, that is DMLS. DMLS also follows the basic process sequence of most 3D printing machines, that is model, slice, and print layer by layer. So again, very similar technology. A thin layer of titanium powder is spread over the build. Now there is a print chamber in which the heat is increased here, and the material is made to reach a melting point. Using this melting point as like a chamber, a further laser touches the part where you have given the CAD input as, And this is the area where the layer just goes above the melting point and adheres to the layer beneath it. The printer continues to spread out one layer on top of the other, and the laser will continue to sinter it as per the CAD model until the part is completed. The major applications of DMLS is in custom implants. So as you can see here, this is like a combined model. Don't worry, this is not one single patient. What we have actually done is multiple patients that we have worked with and worked for in giving them custom implants. We have combined it and made one combined model which shows multiple defects in a single skull and helps us explain that it is across specialities that DMLS can help you get the best result or the best aesthetic output along with giving proper form and fit in terms of implants. These are again few more applications that we have. So we can also look at custom orthopedic plates. And the best advantage of integrating 3D printing and 3D modeling for custom plates is that the screw trajectory can be planned. So let's say if you want a screw that passes through the head of the femur in such a way that it is just through the neck and not knee too medial, not too lateral. This all can be pre-planned in the plate in the designing stage, and the exact angle can be then incorporated in the plate so that you know that the planned trajectory is what you're achieving in the patient bone model. Then there is also customization when it comes to the OMF applications. You can see the zygoma implant wherein basically what happens is the healthy side becomes a reference. Using this, we mirror it onto the defect size and try and match the exact patient dimensions so that the aesthetic restoration that happens post recovery is very similar and is as per the patient dimensions. So there is another mandible case wherein you can see struts being given. Now these struts basically form as a basis for dental restoration later on. 3D printing can also be used for complete anatomy restoration, as you can see here in the case of scapula replacement, wherein an entire scapulary bone has been replaced with a 3D printed scapula. The joint is also reconstructed using a poly component that we further add on to as a cavity. So both anatomy and joint replacements are 100% possible going with DMLS. You also see aesthetic reconstruction or restoration in nuchal cases where the availability of bone is very minimum. You can see that in the right side corner. This is a case that is already executed and you can see the post-restoration or X-ray image post-operative wherein the implant has been placed and on top of this, dental restoration will be planned. So these are screw-retained abutments. We can also do cement-retained abutments. So the opportunities and the applications that 3D printing gives is limitless, and it is always a collaborative effort between the medical team and the engineers and the technology, if I were to say, because it's an ever-evolving field. I would just like to conclude by saying that 3D printing as a tool has the ability to revolutionize and reshape our manufacturing capabilities and bring out an era of mass personalization.
Thank you, Parinita. Thank you for that detailed session. Hello, Parinita.
Yes.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on the future trends, and how long do you think, especially the Indian subcontinent, this technology or the adoption will be a commonplace, and the efforts of Anatomy 3D in that direction?
I think the current difficulty that we face across the market is the cost. So the idea is to bring down the costs. And otherwise, I think everybody is excited with the technology. So yes, when we approach, be it surgeons, be it hospitals, be it anybody from the medical field, people are excited. But when we give out the cost is something wherein we face restrictions or inhibitions, maybe to try out the technology. So I think if we work around materials and make it more cost effective, it can reach the masses pretty quickly.
Okay, and how, as an institution or an organization, are you trying to navigate these issues with respect to the cost?
So with respect to the cost, we're trying to develop at our end itself some materials and machines at our own end that will help us come down, make the costs less. Because if you see, if the consumable costs come down, eventually the selling costs come down. So that's how we are trying to navigate it at our end.
Okay, great. Thank you, Parinda. Is there anything that you feel you've left out, you want to add?
I think we're good to go.
Thank you, Parinda. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we would like to now invite our next speaker, Ms. Ayushi, who is the account manager at Materialize in Medical, based in Bangalore. Ayushi, are you ready to go?
Yes. Hi. Can you see me?
Yeah. Now we can.
Okay. So I'll just share my screen. I'm actually traveling, so I'll be maybe just switching off my video during the presentation.
No problem.
The best is to do the document share, right? No, the screen would be much better. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
The full screen? Yeah?
Yeah, full screen now. Yeah.
All right. So you can see the second slide?
Yes, we can see.
You can see the slides being changed?
Yes, Ayushi, please go ahead.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect. All right. So this was the slide wherein I was at, that, the overview of the company, wherein the company was founded in the year 1990. Going ahead, so our medical engineering software, which is called as the Mimics Innovation Suite, it forms the foundation of a certified medical 3D printing in clinical and research environments worldwide. Now, we truly believe in this concept of co-creating a healthier world, wherein we have had strategic partnerships with leading orthopedic companies like Stryker, like Depu, like Zeva Biomed, and we have enabled our personalized solution to help them pioneer and scale their several applications. Not about the companies, but also a lot of hospitals and clinics. They have used our Mimics Innovation Suite solutions for point of care, which is POC. That's the concept which we coined for the hospital sector. Now, when we talk about the solution, we feel that the personalized applications, bring a lot of value, as they are the right tools to bring the results of the engineer to the surgeon. Now, whether if you just look at the slide, whether it's just the planning portion of it or just the analysis portion of it, or even going ahead with planning-based patient-specific guides and even going ahead with the implants. Now, what's the next step for the hospital? Since we are talking about medical and dental, so we are currently focusing on the hospital sector, and we would want to know that what next. So we have this concept called as point of care, wherein we enable the hospitals to go from outsourcing their requirements to adopting 3D printing in-house. So basically it means that the surgeons or a biomedical engineer or a designated technician, they are the ones who are doing the 3D planning and printing it inside the hospital. And as far as this is concerned, so if you look at the diagram, we can see that there is a potential for collaboration across many departments. So we have orthopedics, oncology, cardiology, CMF. We even had Dr. Mani from the pediatric cardiology in the previous presentation. So it's just not about one department, it's about amalgamation of all the departments. And it eventually removes the need for outsourcing 3D printing applications. And the device can be either printed, in the facility or near the site of patient care. So whichever the hospital stage it's at. Now, if you want to operationalize 3D printing, it can be very simple at first. If you look at the slide, it gives you an overview of the workflow. So you can basically start with personal training, and then streamline your 3D imaging protocols. And then, when you go further, you can buy the certified software along with a 3D printer. And eventually, you would require a quality management system or a QMS as you expand your application. In order to train new end users to learn the basics of our software, we introduced a Mimics user certification program last year, which is an online training program. You get all your questions answered by materialized experts. There are a set of assignments and some videos which the participants need to, fulfill in order to get a proper certificate from the company. We also recently launched our QMS course, which provides a structured framework that can actually help, the decision makers, be it accountancy or purchase or, regulatory present in the hospitals, to optimize the quality of the patient care, reduce the mistakes in the production process, and increase the credibility of point of care for 3D printing labs. So if any of you is interested in these two courses, they can definitely either contact Materialize directly, or you can even go in the website and check it out. Now, when we talk about Materialize medical software solution in a hospital, we intend to combine our Mimics Innovation Suite software potentially along with a certified 3D printer, and then eventually implement a centralized resource which supports different medical specialties. Now, it can majorly include CMF surgery, orthopedic surgery, and cardiology. However, not only just limited to these specialties. Since the focus of this conference is actually also on the dental part of it, so our Materialized CMF software solution, which is craniomaxillofacial software solution, is an amalgamation of Mimics software along with our ProPlan software. Now, this solution supports virtual planning for reconstruction as well as orthodontic procedure. Our ProPlan software enables the surgeons to accurately plan their surgeries in 3D. It is quite user-friendly and specifically designed for hospitals. So it's a workflow automated software wherein it gives the surgeon an autonomy to design and plan himself. And it is also a very, very effective educational tool as well. Now, in this slide, you can see the indication. So the indications for the ProPlan software is orthodontic surgery, reconstruction surgery, as well as the distraction surgery. Now, coming on to the orthodontic planning. Now, these are the main 3 steps, or workflow, which is present in the orthodontic module. Now, we start with the composite model, which talks about the alignment of segmented parts with dental cast, going ahead, for the creation of composite model. And then you can also achieve simulation of facial nerves. Then the next step is the cephalometric analysis. You can have placement of landmark points, and then going ahead with the virtual planning. Occlusion registration, which includes osteotomy. So you can have certain osteotomies like BSSO, which is like Lefort, which is embedded in the library, or you can even have customized osteotomies. Further going ahead, you can have occlusion registration, repositioning, as well as soft tissue simulation. Talking about the reconstruction planning, now the reconstruction modules talks about these workflow automation. So we start with the preparation for planning, which includes the natural head positioning, tumor resection, as well as mirroring the healthy portion, to the defect area. Then we go ahead with the fibula planning, which talks about the positioning and how to have an osteotomy cuts. And then eventually we reposition these segments to the fibula, which we have imported in the software. Now, if and only if the surgeon or the hospital is really keen in, having the guide design, having the autonomy to create the design, we also enable them. The software also enables them to have patient-specific guides and models, as well as patient-specific implants. These have a lot of benefits because the surgeon or the biomedical engineer can actually design these implants in-house, design the patient-specific guides in-house, and eventually send it for printing to a service bureau if it's metal implant, or they can even print it in-house if they have a small FDM printer, because this I would say reduces a lot of lead time, and it also increases a lot of accuracy, because it's actually the surgeon who is planning, or who is basically guiding the biomedical engineer how to go about it. Now in this slide, I would just maybe play a couple of videos just to give you a glance as to how the software works. So this is our software, which is Mimics Imprint. So this is our basic segmentation software, wherein you can see in this video, we have imported the DICOM file of a skull, and we are trying to threshold the model right now, wherein we apply the thresholding. So you can see the drop-down menu, you have a lot of thresholding values. You can even have customized threshold, so you can customize the Hounsfield unit, which area you want to take, and just with a click of a button, you can finally get the model, which is on the right hand bottom side, and you can export it as an STL file for the further software planning. Now this is the orthonatic planning which we have from ProPlan. So we start with the nerve tracing. You can see in the user interface that the software enables you to actually trace the nerve so that you don't, hit the nerve by accident when you're planning, and you're very well aware of the location. So you can also have composite models, and you can see that in the window you can have the anatomical landmarks, and you can actually match them together. You can also have the cephalometric analysis, so you can create your own cephalometric analysis. You can create or select some standard points which you normally use, and also the analysis of those cephalometric analysis. Now here, as I mentioned before, you can have the simulation of osteotomies. You've got a couple of osteotomies here, and you can even create your own customized osteotomy depending upon the anatomy, the morphology of the patient. The next step is the reposition, wherein you can see in this window you have interactive translate and rotate tools, so that you can achieve the right position and you are completely satisfied. So yes, there is a couple of manual intervention which is required, and not everything is automated, so that you get the accurate result. After that, you can also have a pre and post cephalometric analysis, which you can export, and you can use it for your studies as well. Here you can see that the soft, in the screen they're playing the simulation, so you can have the soft tissue simulation as well in the software. So here you can see that we are trying to do a part comparison analysis, pre versus post. So it would actually show you how much change there has been in terms of delta, how much change there has been post the surgery. Now, splint design can also be achievable in our software. You just need to, have some landmarks which can be annotated on the screen, and then you can, in fact, create, increase or decrease the thickness also of the splint. And finally, you can export the splint as an STL directly in the, for printing. Talking about the reconstruction planning now. So this is the reconstruction module which we have. So we have so we are trying to reposition eventually go into the osteotomy wizard. So you can see that you can select the type of the osteotomy plane as well from the left hand side, and you can increase the thickness, the width, the length, so everything is customizable. And again, the translate rotate option. Now comes the mirroring part, wherein you are trying to mirror the healthy part to the defect. So that once you're creating the fibula graft, it should be completely as per the contour. Now, last but not the least step is the reconstruction with fibula. So here, you need to create a curve according to the healthy part, and then once you create a curve, the automatically takes that fibula which you have imported in the software, and it gives you the segments. So it gives you the cutting planes, that these cutting planes should be there. So here you can see that so the fibula, there are these 3 cuts. You can kind of rotate and shift it and just make it completely aligned, so that you know that these are exactly your, the planes, the 3 segments which needs to be cut. And eventually you can take it into our Trimmatic software and create the cutting guides as well. So I would be just concluding with a couple of slides now. Now, I think a lot of the previous speakers have talked about the reported benefits. Now, I'd like to talk about the reported benefits of having a point of care concept in the hospital. So it's not just only virtual planning, but as Dr. Mani also mentioned, the importance of an anatomical model. You have a better preparation for surgery. You can reduce a lot of surgical time and cost. I would also want to talk about patient education, because it truly, you can truly achieve informed consent with an anatomical model, because then the patient exactly knows that what is happening. Because normally when, we talk about surgeries, we talk with the patients, and then we, use all the scientific jargons, and they don't understand that. But when they have a model which they can feel, they can actually understand that what is going to happen during the surgery. Last but not the least, it's about also driver of innovation. We have seen that this has been a very well adopted concept in the West, because it talks about true innovation. And we have started our journey with X-ray, and then with CT scans coming in, and now we have those personalized DICOM files. So we should actually adopt this concept of 3D printing and 3D planning in hospital to create that more awareness within the fraternity as well. Now, overall, if we look at the benefits of 3D printing, now surgical, we have already discussed about that. But then, for the radiology wing, you can actually open a 3D lab and provide it as a service within the hospital. So that's the ideal concept of having a 3D point of care lab. And definitely it's the next generation of medical image handling and analysis. When we talk about the hospital, you can definitely become a reference center. We have seen, people talking about Amrita Institute a lot, people talking about, AIMS or Medanta Hospital, because they have adopted this technology, 3D point of care. So this also brings in a lot of marketing value. Now let's talk about robotics in surgery. It actually gives a very good brand value to the hospital. So same applies for 3D printing. So it's just not, impacting patient lives, but it also gives a very good makeover shift to the hospital brand image as well. Now, I just like to end my slide with this. So these are our top 20 global partner hospitals using materialized mimics technology. We have recently added Bhagwan Mahavir Hospital as well this year. And as Dr. Mani also mentioned, that Amrita has been one of our oldest customers, and I think one of the oldest adopters of 3D point of care concept in India. And I would say, pardon me if I'm wrong, it might be in Asia Pacific as well. And we also have Medanta Hospital, which is also using our software. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayushi. Thank you for that well illustrated presentation.
Thank you so much.
Panelists, audience, any questions? Ayushi, if I may just ask you, how do you see these application in terms of telemedicine?
In terms of telemedicine?
Yeah.
So I would not specifically talk about telemedicine as such, but yes, so there are certain technologies. So you don't eventually need to print a 3D model, doctor, but you can also export the 3D PDF. So I am not sure whether it would fit under the concept of telemedicine, but yes, if the service bureau provides a 3D PDF to the surgeon, which enables their surgical plan, the surgeon can also, share that 3D PDF with the patient online, over a consultation, that this is something which we have imported from your scans and this is what it looks like. The patient doesn't need to be actually present in the OPD at that point of time. So I'm not sure whether that would qualify as telemedicine, but yes, that is something which might be an interesting aspect for that.
Okay. And do you feel the technology would bring in standardization of treatment outcomes, uh, universal health coverage and stuff?
Now, there has been a couple of organizations which have been the government organization like NCAM,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have Dr. Shivu as well working with the policymakers. So that is something which is very important because 3D printing in medical is not for each and every case, right? So
Mm-hmm.
wherein a standard solution might not fit, because definitely,
Mm-hmm.
we have seen the speaker saying that yes, 3D printing is costly, it is coming up with some cost attached to it. So it's patient specific, but why is it costly? Because you have the effort of a designer, and then you also have the cost of the software, the cost of the material, the printer, and the lead time, everything. So it's just not that 3D printing companies are just making money out of it. We are not earning high margins. The service bureau, they are actually operating a very bare minimum profit. So it's not for every case. So it's very important to have that awareness or create that awareness with the policymaker fraternity as well, with the organization, with the government bodies, that this is a concept. And we have seen in West that actually 3D printing model, they are part of their insurance. So they have their own codes which they have to input, and then it gets billed automatically. Now recently, when we're talking about Amrita Hospital, so Amrita Hospital, I think last year they came out with this pricing. So earlier, before that, they were actually not charging it to the patients, and they have been using the model since 4 or 5 years. But recently, last year itself, they came out with this pricing strategy. How do we need to price it? So it has to be nominal, and they kind of calculated everything. So that awareness has to be really brought down, especially within the hospitals as well as with the policymakers.
Any example of the West that you can pull in?
So we have Mayo Clinic, doctor, wherein they actually have a very, very big 3D printing lab. They have a couple of 3D printers, and so I think there might be a video as well available online, which actually shows a big 3D lab tour, wherein they have I would say at least 5 to 10 design engineers dedicated for that. So they serve this to every department possible, and their special focus is on oncology, because they print every model. So it's like if they get a patient file, I mean, like printing a model it's like a mandate for them. And they have
Inevitable,
also
yes.
shown with their statistics that how does it impact, when you talk about especially oncology surgeries, you have a lot of time, and there are a lot of open surgery, so you need to save a lot of time in the OR. So it saves surgical time, it improves the quality of life of the patient as well. So then they have tried to kind of connect the initial cost of that 3D printing with all these I would say tangible as well as the non-tangible aspects of it. So there are a whole gamut with which it's impacting the patient's life.
Thank you. Interesting. Best wishes for you, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thanks, doctor.
Thank you. With that, I would now like to. Is there anything, Ayushi, that you want to add?
No, I think I'm good, doctor. Just to maybe add one more point, because Dr. Mani had
Mm-hmm.
mentioned in
Mm-hmm.
his comments
Mm-hmm.
that uh, 3D printing is costly. Yes, it is. But then when we talk about the point of care concept, when we try to, amalgamate or kind of pull in the other departments as well. So yes, if you're trying to do it just for one department, it might look costly because, the departmental funds are coming in and it's just completely, it's a baggage in just one department. But when you try to divide, because ultimately, how will you justify 3D printing in a hospital? You need to have those case volume with you, the number of cases, right? So it would only increase when you involve other departments as well. And trust me, there is, as long as you have a DICOM, there would be an application of 3D printing, because you can at least create a virtual model, if not print it at the end point, but then you can still see, you can have a virtual model for diagnosis. So that's how we need to that's how the costing would come down, because that's how the hospital would have an ROI eventually. So there might be an initial expensive investment, but then over maybe 2 or 3 years, definitely they would have a break even in that.
Thank you for showing us that silver lining. Thank you, Aishi.
Thank you, doctor.
With that, I seek your permission to pull in the next speaker. So may I request V. Ramudi, the head of healthcare division at Sri Rapid Technologies, to kindly join us with his presentation.
Yeah, hi, Doctor.
Hello.
Just a second. Let me share the screen. I hope it's visible.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Probably starting from Dr. Mani, he mentioned about the more practical difficulties, pros, and a few issues that he is facing and all. And continue to the next two speaker, and I think Trinity, somebody, and also Aishi. I think they have covered up maximum what is required in a healthcare about software, about hardware, little bit on the material. Probably I'm just thinking of where I can gap my presentation to, or else I just want to put a brand on that. Obviously, there are very very less softwares and hot in the market to give a solution. As Dr. Mani has mentioned, uh, there are few software that he could not able to find the proper solution to get the hot models, to get with the proper internal valves and all stuff. Yes, it is but there are different ways, and I would say like this is not an approach of the software or hardware, it's approach of the each application. That what maybe I believe, and we want to propose in the way to give a complete solution on that. So okay, myself Firai Mudi, probably a small about me, like I'm a mechanical engineer and masters in 3D printing. So I'm a researcher basically, did tissue engineering and scaffold research for a while, and working in this field for from 2010 in a multiple application. I'm a technical person, currently heading healthcare in Sri Rapid Technologies, uh, handling technical business together. So we small intro about us, who we are. That's what more important, I would say. Would like to introduce our MDs Nitin Chaudhary and Shashidhar Kumar, the people who are passionate on the technology, who has been working for more than 25 years in various industries to create a big impact in the different industries about 3D printing. And our solution would say like we are not a company who give a product or something. So we believe on the complete solution. So that's the reason we come up with a complete solution for all different industries, specifically healthcare. And we have a setup called Customer Innovation Center in Mumbai. So this we have almost 11 plus technologies, 18 plus equipments, that is 3D printers, and 40 plus materials with various industries, specifically for healthcare, aerospace, and all this stuff. And we have a team of people who are working in the industry for a long time and who know how to give a solution for the different applications, to give a solution for the because 3D printing is new in every field, and it's a solution for all the bottleneck that we are facing every day in different industries. So it's open. So it's a kind of that's the reason we put it the name of Innovation Center. We are open for everyone to do R&D or any test trial works. We are there to help on this. And okay, our presence, obviously brand we represent. Yes, we are representing multiple brand as a prime partner is 3D system, and specifically healthcare, we have a maximum of solution with 3D system and a couple of more principles like 3D Ceram and Form Labs for some other techniques apart from 3D system what they have. And when we talk about 3D printing, as the previous speakers mentioned, so it's a interdisciplinary. So say like interdisciplinary in the sense, though, two different departments together and two different process together. Would say like in mechanical, we would say the reverse engineering. The same way they are doing in healthcare, starting from the patient data, we convert as a 3D model, designing this requirement as a guide, model, virtual planning, whatever it is, and we have to choose the material before the printer. That's what more important. And then we have to choose and it's obviously which material you want, which solution you want, that goes along with the printer. So that's how it will work. And also would say it's a simple nutshell. We are in a 3 different workflow, specifically say reconstructive and any surgeries that will help on the 3D model, surgical guides, and the second thing is the orthotic and prosthetic application. Probably I'm not going to cover much on that. Probably I just want to slide on it. And dental application, as you know. I would start from dental as a workflow. Yes, the same way as the scanning, designing, and 3D printing. So there are intraoral scanners and model scanners. We represent 3 shapes, and they have the specific their designing software for different application. Probably people are well aware about it. I don't want to go deep on that. And obviously, the printers would say like we are representing 2 different printers with the 2 different technologies, DLP and SLE. Would say people believe yes, both are resin, but there are few difference, and the difference, it doesn't mean like the quality. It mean like which way we want. So it specifically depends on the customer. Okay, it specifically depends on the dental labs or dental clinic based on their practice. So how soon they want to print the model. So what is their regular workflow, how it works. Would say next gen DLP technology have a different material, and of course comparing to other technologies, 4 times faster than that. So I can print very quickly 15-20 minutes of surgical guide, models, dentures, crowns, and all. At the same time, it's equal to the accuracy of it. Different material. So next gen is a company who come up with a specific material for specific application in dentistry, crown, bridges, dentures, and all. So they have a specific certified workflow for denture and full denture, that is crown and the gingival portion. Probably you can see some of the samples that what we have printed for a few of the clients. And these are some of the application dentistry, probably crown, bridges, anything that goes into the proper prosthetic dentistry. And they can do the surgical guides, aligner models. Obviously in NextDent we have an option called a stacking. You can print almost 25 to 30 models based on the size in a single bed, and it will print in almost 2.5 hours. It's more faster, and the accuracy, everything has been carried well. And most of the Indian aligner companies are using it and are getting services from our customers to print the ortho models. Would say like Form Labs, SLA technology, the same variety of materials they have, but the technologies, SLA is different, and it becomes on the entry level. Laboratories, maybe the clinicians, they want to have a less number of practice, and when I say they can wait for a while to print a thing. So that's how it will work. And specifically the bed size is huge. If they want to put up a multiple bigger size model, would say like if they want to print anatomical model, so they can print the same material. And as like NextGen, they also have a same variety, and specifically would say they have a soft tissue material would be printed for a lot of mock surgical practice in the dentistry. So it give a exact consistency of the soft tissue, and same way as the look as well. A lot of the doctors and maybe a few of my customers who are giving solution for the surgical guides and those things, they are also printing by using soft material. And so the main core of the today's section is point of care of healthcare, reconstructive surgery, or any surgery related to the soft tissue, hard tissue, and specifically it goes in a workflow. As per me, I would say I will take two steps in a major: software and hardware. And in software, probably medical image processing is the one, and then designing that goes in a second step. And in that mean, specifically, I would say in 3D printing of healthcare, so software takes a major role because, sorry,
El doctor que es en el otro lado ya salió. Está nadando ya.
am I audible to go?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah,
Sorry for the
okay.
interruption in between.
Yeah, not a problem. So I would say software takes a major role in a complete healthcare solution and by using 3D printing because as Aishu mentioned, the software that we are using has to be specifically the workflow and different segmentation tools. Yes, and specifically this is a entry because whenever what we get the data from the patient like CT, CBCT, MRI with a specific a DICOM file with a slice thickness and all. It completely we are depending on the software that help us to convert a 2D to 3D model. And the thing is, we don't even find if there is any threshold has been changed, if the bone density has not come well, if some patient will have existing implants or any plate screws there should be some scatterings in CTs, CBCTs where more scatters on that. So in that things, if you're adjusting that, we have to be sure whether the software will help you to remove only the scatterings or the bone, because we don't have a specific comparing model to evaluate or identify whether we are going into the right model. So that's the reason. So as also Dr. Mani mentioned, yes, there are very few software, I would say two. I'm not sure more than 2 or 3 maximum, but 2 I say strong. I have used both software like Mimics and our software D2P that I come to print from 3D system. So the software needs to be certified. That's the first point, because we are depending on the first software. Whatever it gives, we have to believe, we have to go with it. If there is any issue or some changes in that, if the data is not correct, we could not identify any level. So we can find it when the surgeon is operating. For example, if you are printing a implant, customized implant, whether it is not fitting in the table, so it's a completely fails. It won't fail that specific implant. Obviously, doctors will have doubt on the whole technology. So that's why we are be very conscious on 2 level. One is the image processing that has to be certified or approval software for the medical usage, and second thing on the manufacturing side, because design it based on people, based on doctors' requirement. It's completely, would say, a specific customized way of design. So not everyone can do the same design for customized implant. So the second thing is on the printing level, the material, technique, process, after printing, post processing, the protocols and all stuff. So these are the things I would say most important. Not only the people who are service providers specifically, I would be very happy if doctors also specifying whether which way they are using it, because completely depends, the whole risk goes on the doctor. So we have to be little responsible on using that. So the software we are using for medical image processing is D2P, DICOM to TIM. As it says, it's FDA medical certified. And probably the conversion software, most software are most like Mimics and GDPR works in the same way. And each software have their unique way. We have a automated segmentation tool, and it will be very quick on converting the data, the diagnosis purpose. You can do the resection. If you want to do some cut on the bone, if you want to resect something, if you want to measure something, you can do it very simply, quickly. And like virtual planning also, if you have any STL files of the screws or plates, if you want to put in that, you can see as well as 3D as well as 2D in synchronized view, and you can see where it is the screws is fitting, whether it is a high density, low density. We can do that. Obviously, you can separate the existing screws and plates, and you can do the individual bone separation. That's more important. Our automatic segmentation tool works in a way. If you want to separate a connecting bones like vertebral or mandible maxilla, even if you want to separate a tooth from the CT data, we have an automatic segmentation tool. You don't want to work in the multiple layers. You just want to pick a point. Here you can see plus and minus. Wherever it is the plus point, it's a required anatomy. Where is a minus point, that's what we have to separate from it. So just randomly, you can put a point on 4 to 5 slides on the overview, and it will automatically segment. So it's a processed, and it will get exact output of the data. And even the same way, you can separate the vertebrals. Each vertebra also, whatever it is, a complex cases, you can do that. And also we have multiple to remove the scatterings and all stuffs. So in that, we have a 3 different module. Would say like this is a bone model, and this is the tooth model, specifically for the dental and most of the subperiosteal implant cases, zygomatic implant cases. Patient will have a mobile tooth, so they have to extract and they have to take another CT to identify whether they have what is the existing bone inside. So they have to plan accordingly. But this tool will help you to pick a point on each tooth, whether it is single router of 1 point, double router of 2 point. Just 1 point is enough to extract the tooth there. So you can see the model on the right side. So it's a tooth extraction. It will give you the exact extract for the manual thing. So you can proceed with the same data, and you can go to the single stretch of surgery. And vascular model, as I said, the same way we have automatic segmentation, path tracking. It most work on the arteries, nerves, and I would not say like kidney and heart will not come specifically in the vascular model, because have been worked multiple cases that has been taken in the CT. It would say the contrast CT of kidneys and heart models and all. So it depends on arteries and nerves. It specifically have a special tool to track the nerves and all stuff. So probably this is a workbench, I would say. Probably whenever you're importing the CT scan data, you can see the data once you import it. It's not a converted 3D. You can see what are the data inside the CT. And based on your requirement, you can just go for the automatic segmentation. So in a single click, you get the 3D model. And based on that, you can separate mandible, maxilla, or if you want to do the resection cut, you can do everything over there. So here the video, I think it's running. You're able to see. So here we are extracting the mandible by using the automatic segmentation tool. And probably you can see the mandible here. So once you extract it, this is a 3D model. So it's an amyloblastoma case, probably a cancer case, would say like. So this is what the time taken to remove the thing. So even if you wanna, doctors want to do the resection and they want to know where I can do the cut and what is the lesion extended internally, you can also train a transparent, and based on that you can do the resection cut as well. And the major thing in the software is our tools are very straightforward. We have very, very limited tools that help you to do the resection, planning, diagnosis, and you can create a support connection between it. And also, if you want to do the planning by using the some external screws or plates, you can import directly and you can see it in a single platform. So you can put it and you can check whether it is match it fitting in the level. So once you create this line, it will help you to resect the lesion portion. So once you convert it, so if you want to print a model to the mock surgical planning and all stuff, you can export and you can go for the printing, and you have to choose the material, whether it is a FDM, SLA, SLS, whatever it is, you want to print it based on the feasibility. There is no restrictions or limitation, the requirement for the model for the diagnosis purpose. Obviously, FDM, we can use it for the basic diagnostic understanding purpose, but if you want to get something into the theater, if you want to do something on the during the surgery, want to do some kind of sterilization before getting into the theater, so obviously we will not prefer FDM only for the basic understanding and planning of the surgery. So these are some of the outputs you can see by using the vascular module. Yes, we also worked multiple cases with our headquarters for the COVID things. We calculated the volume and all stuff by using a lungs volume calculation. Obviously, a lot of people has done it. And as I said, you can exactly extract the existing screws and plates wherever it is fits. So you can plan the surgery in a single stretch. So you will know what is the loss of bone once you remove the existing plate in the software itself. So we also have a virtual reality for the teaching purpose. Obviously, it will be the virtual platform for the doctors to teach. Sometimes it also help you to do the planning for the some kind of quick and pediatric kind of surgeries. And would say the second thing is the designing. Probably there are a lot of designing softwares, and we'd say like Geomagic Freeform that comes along with a haptical device. The beauty of the software is, would say like we have to use the device instead of the mouse. This device will give you the touch feedback of the anatomy. Okay, you can feel the surface, you can do the virtual cutting. It will exactly give you the feedback of the bone based on the density. You can cut it, you can remove if you want to do the drilling, if you want to do places some kind of plate screws if you want to put, you can do quickly on that. So this is a virtual platform with the touch feedback. So how you are going to have a model to do the planning, would say like so you're going to cut the model, you're going to put a plate and do all the planning. So everything that you can do it in the software itself, along with the touch consistency. So, and also the main thing is this software will give you the complete freedom of designing, because we are not going to design something on the parametrical, it's completely non-parametrical. So, and main thing, we can't work on millimeters on this. So it will give you the complete design freedom to create any kind of structure as quick as possible, and there is no so can bypass the limitation by using the software, and it is very quick for you to handle as well. So only thing is you have to just hands on with the device. Then even doctors will not believe. Few of my customer, 3 to 4 people are doctors, and I would say like to maxillofacial surgeons, they are designing their cases on their own. And 1 month before, I have trained a hospital in Bangalore, so they have started doing their virtual planning by using the same device. So the designing and planning people are doctors as well. So some of the pictures, as I think Ashi has explained with orthognathic surgery, yes, you can also do the same BSSO, leaf fold cuts exactly, and they do the virtual planning and stuff, creating a splint, and you can use the splint on the theater. And virtual planning, obviously, it works on the same way. You can create whatever you want, but it will be little freedom on the way that you want to create, and flexibility all stuff. And creating a lattice structure, obviously, it's a different topic, and it works more than customized implant to the standardized implant. Now, most of the vestibular cups and hip knee implants that people are going up with the lattice structures, specifically trabecular structures. They have to increase the better osseointegration as well as reducing the weight. So there are a lot of things out there. We can also design the custom based vestibular cup. 1 or 2 companies, they are working on it. So it's like this two softwares works in all your applications. It doesn't restrict to the single application like maxillofacial. You can do orthopedic. You can do spine as well, fibula grafting, and whatever it is related to it. Even we used to prepare a hot model by using Geomagic Freeform. We split up multiple, say, to be printed as a 2-3 part for them to diagnosis and all stuff. We do a lot of scoliosis cases. I personally doing scoliosis cases from 2011. My first case for an 8 years old baby. Till today, I'm doing a lot of cases with a few surgeons, specifically Dr. Karnar. And so there are a lot of things that are going on with multiple industries. And this software doesn't restrict with a simple one application. It works in multiple applications. And do not believe it also works in orthotic and prosthetic as well. So one of the team in US, Additive America, I guess. Yeah. So they are using Geomagic Freeform completely on orthotic and prosthetic application. Here's the prime, and the thing is patient-specific implant. That's what happening in country now. After COVID, there are a lot of mucor cases. A lot of doctors are operating. I think morning section, Dr. Girish Rao sir mentioned about what is going on. It's adapting very fastly. And a lot of other surgeons are also very passionate on doing new things. And this is changing the way and helping the surgeons to do some new way of surgical practice as well. And probably it's little earlier in topological optimization for creating this kind of lattice structure for standard implants. Probably it's I just want to say there is a software to do some lattice structure, automated workflow that you don't want to repeat your complete, protocols again. You can fix and you can create some structure, and you can just copy with the multiple slices of the standard implants, whether it is a spine, orthopedic, anything. So that works very quick, and I don't want to say a short word about it because it takes a long time to explain it, but you can go through the website. Probably you will get more information. Probably if you want to know better, let me know, so we can also connect another section to explain about it. So these are the application, that is lightweightening, analysis, topological optimization, validation, all the stuff you can do using software. And yes, as I said, so software has been done. So probably the speaker before Aishi, she has explained about different techniques, CJP, SLA, SLS, and all. I think I don't want to repeat the same. I just want to put a brand on it. Yes, as a 3D system, we have different techniques like SLA, bigger SLA, DLP, we have MJP, SLS, CJP, and DMLS metal printers. We have a different technology specifically. I would say I want to say specifically which technique I'm using for the application, because I'm aware people know what is SLA, what is SLS, and how to use it, and also a few of the commands has been mentioned. 3D printing is still costly. Yes, I understand, but I believe that it's don't need to be a costly if you are using the right technique for the right application. Okay, for example, would say so for model, we want to print it on a just to understand, to do the diagnosis on table planning. We don't go ahead for the bigger machine. Even a 50,000, 1 lakh FDM printer will do the same. Obviously, there should be some quality compromise, but that won't stop you to give the input that serve the purpose for the basic level to understanding diagnosis and all stuff. So if you want to go for the guide, we have to be very minimal on printing the model. We don't need to print the whole model, especially with the region of interest. So then it will be make little economical, and based on the value of the surgery, the complexity of the surgery, it won't be a big thing. So I'm not completely saying it's not cheap, okay, but comparing to 10 years before, 5 years before, it becoming cheap. And I would say in next 2 years is going to be a game change, and I would say everything is going to come up in a more affordable, and affordability comes on accessibility, I would say. So we have to create a lot of people has to start doing services, a lot of POCs, point of care centers has to be developed. That a lot of people are trying to do that. Even we too also working with multiple people to create a point of care lab, because putting a lab is of course it's own cost effective, but then your running cost will be completely different. But point of care will not give you the complete solution for, I'm saying, models and guides, that level. Implants is totally different. So I just want to say SLA, well. So SLA has been using for models, transparent models, contrast model. I think what Dilip sir was mentioning in the morning section, to identify the internal screw plates and all. And we have a figure 4 standalone. That was a machine we are installing a lot right now. Have a various of material, and completely very fast industrial grade material. You can use our end product for other application. Specifically in healthcare, we have these two material. Sustain high temperature, biocompatibility. You can would say when you are taking up the biocompatibility, biocompatible to use inside the body, biocompatible to place inside the body. These are the plastic polymer materials so far we can use inside the body for a while. You can do autoclave, sterilization, both the things. And this thing has been done once, and you can use. You have to throw it. And if you go for the polymer, you can design and print some kind of devices. You can use multiple times. It will sustain high temperature as well. So MEDAM and transclusion, these are the two things. So probably when we talk about the application, I would love to show some cases what we have done recently. This is a recent case. Last year we had done with Ahmedabad SIMS Hospital. We printed a heart model. Even there is article in Mr. Dilip Benes's blog. So we put a heart touching 3D printing story. You can read the whole blog. And the main thing is we printed a heart model for a 14 years old person, child. Okay, so this has been created a big impact on the complexity and arteries. They are not able to find out where they want to put. They were going to do all the things. So has been completely, eliminated the all risk. They have done the surgery, first kind of surgery in Ahmedabad, and Dr. Dhiran Shah is the one who operated it, and even they have published in the paper. And we use D2P and Geomagic freeform to do that. And I would say like the converting and preparing time is less than an hour, and printing time would say just 4 hours by using a figure 4 technology. Okay, we printed as a whole model in 4 hours. So maybe the same kind as we are talking about the spinal. Scoliosis is a more happening cases, and we are doing a lot of foreign patients here in India, and most scoliosis cases are repeated cases. They had been failed. One of the kind is that. So you can see the screws and plates has been failed, it's broken. So by using the software, we can exactly remove the screws and plates. We can see the anatomy there. Based on the doctor's requirement, we can do the segmentation and do the planning. So in the planning, we have to put the pedicle screws, whether it should not enter the internal nerves, which not comes outside, and it has to be put in a high density region as well. Then only it won't fail, like the previous surgery. So this is virtually we planned everything, get approved from the doctor. We have an idea of how much deep I can go, what is the diameter, and I can create a smaller guide, so jigs and fixture. And it changes a lot. I would say like in 2011, the first surgery, we was completely clueless when I see the model of a 8 years old girl. No, it's a child. So she was very small. We at the time I'm a student there. I was doing my masters. So we was confused whether we printed a scaled or skeleton model. Okay, then we tried and we was praying a God when we when the guide has fit into that, and it changes a lot, reduces surgical time, anesthesia time. So luckily, I used to be in theater. All my surgeries have an experience of attending a somewhere 80 surgeries of different applications, spine, not orthopedic, maxillofacial implant cases. But it reduces the surgical time, anesthesia time, and complexity. When doing the spinal cases, they have some kind of sensor. The sensor is cost around 50,000 per hour. Okay, they have to use it for 8 to 9 hours. The sensor will give you, whenever they are trying to put a pedicle screw placement, it will indicate whether they are going inside touching the nerve. It will indicate after they touch or little near to the nerve. Sometimes it goes wrong, they will take it, they will close it, they have to start from the scratch. It increases time as well the cost. This procedure, this planning has bypassed everything. So if the doctor has sit with us in a plan, so there will be clear idea what they are going to do, how they are going to put the screws and everything. So they can just open, they can put the guide, create a holes, remove the guide, they can put the pedicle screws. So this has changed a lot. Would say like not all common surgeons have started using. I would say few people have started using it. They are using it. I'm not sure how happening it's, but it changes a big impact. I feel like this thing has to be created more awareness for the surgeons. There is an option that can reduce so on so things. So this is a CT scan after surgery. So you can see the comparison. And obviously, as I said, Formlabs is an entry-level printer. It helps you to print the models, sometimes guides as well. They also have the same kind of material with the different, and also they have some elastic material, flexible to print a heart model, some kind of things. You can print a whole cranial and also probably would say like this kind of cases. Syndroma case operated in Chennai. So it's a less than 1 year old baby operated in 2018. Okay, this is the first kind of case that we are doing it. Usually they will take more time and they has to do lot of planning on that. Would say you can see a simple straight normal cut, but it has 5 to 6 parametrical. We have to see the angle, suturing point. From that, I have to put some lines. Probably surgeons will know better, but I just follow the guidance of the surgeon. So they created the complete plan. We put it as a 3 different piece. One is a green, and in top you can see the 2 frontal cranial piece. So we just break it 3, and we do the complete planning. Surgeon has sit with us. He planned whether they have to go front, setback, or whatever they want to do. They planned completely, and they fixed the final one. And we printed a guy to cut it, and small black to do the adjustment. Would say like it's a small baby, so we can't put a bigger guide with the handle and all stuff. It's a small block, but it will serve the purpose. That's what the requirement, I would say. So this is a printed guide models. CJP, yes, of course, it's more on a surgical practice. Multicolor, it will give you the same drilling effect of the bone that we are doing. And SLS, orthotic and prosthetic application, selective laser sintering and all stuff. And so this is one of the case that we did very, very early, 2012 sometime. And okay, going to the main, the DMP flux metal printer, I would say like this printer has been developed to print implants. So the two researchers or professors, when they're doing a PhD, they have developed, they want to do implant printing. Then based on it, they have developed this technology with a unique way of, printing methods. I would say like, yes, techniques are almost same, but we have a vacuum chamber concept that will not allow the material to dehydrate. For example, if you are exposing with air and you are printing the multiple times, so normally the material with other machines will exceed their property in 15 to 16 cycle in the laboratory setup. And it's a research output of the journal. White paper is saying the same thing. After 15 to 16 cycle, the titanium is not titanium. So ours technique, we have a vacuum chamber, completely vacuum before the printing, and it's would say you can use our material infinity times in the same way. DMP 350 flux. Okay, and main thing is uh, whenever you're using every time the material, it's say infinitive for a number, we'd say 173 we run 40-60 kgs of material will not be exceed. So we have to change the material. So that's a main thing. And also our blade, running blade, printing complex, we have a specific software to create a lattice. You can monitor it. There are a lot of things out there. Probably I just give a short intro about it. Titaniums, would say some cases I want to show what I have done by using the same machine technique based softwares as well. It's a subperiosteal implant, a quick heal, so it's not a complicated surgery, dental chair based surgery. Instead of a dental implant, some kind of cases they can't put it for the cylindrical normal implant. So we can design this as kind of subperiosteal. We can put it like this. Post-operative image you can see, and patient-specific implant, specifically cancer cases, as it's the version of a young 24 years old patient has been operated in 2018. You can see the internal lesion, how it's extended based on, we can prepare the cut, create a guide, and then we have to create an implant based on it. Would say whenever we are doing implant, resection guide is more important because it carries the accuracy. If there is any plus or minus they have done the cutting, the implant won't fit. Sometimes if we find it won't fit, it's very good. Sometimes we can't find, we can little adjust because surgeons, this little variation 1 or 2 mm will not going to be physically or somewhere we are going to identify. We can put somewhere adjust, then it fail after a while. Both way it create a problem, and that's the reason we have to be very clear on doing each and every step. Planning, resection, printing of implant, processing, everything has to be done in a proper workflow. So I would say it's not just 3D printing, it's a workflow that what we recommend. So implant, okay, it's a self-abutment implant. There are screw retain processes. Few of my customers now doing it. I'm not doing services. I stopped doing 3 years before, but these are my previous cases. Some cases we do recently for the benchmark case, and we can treat. This is not a real guide that we use it, so it's a dummy model. But this is how we use it for the surgery. So whenever they are putting a guide, so they can get the exact cutting plan. Okay. So the thing is, the guide will make you to do a proper cut, then the implant will fit in the right way. So you can see the guide and you can see the model, exactly where we want to do. We did the cut and we put the implant on it. And whenever you're doing it, we have to be very clear. We have to design beyond the symmetricity of the anatomy. We can't design whatever we think, whatever we dream. So we have limitations. That's what I said. Limitations is in our hands. We have to be care on developing some surfaces. It has to be very symmetric. We have to consider soft tissue. There are a lot of protocol. Maybe we would say like a methodology. It's not like the one methodology. So we have to make our own methodology to proceed in the right way. So that's why we can't say there is no failure. There should be some failures. We have to accept it, but we have to avoid failures because of the implant design of the material or some surgeries. Okay, so that's all. So it's maybe a same kind, but you can see a little complicated case. We can do how much material bone we can save by printing it. So this is an implant that we can say that putting a guide and removing and placing it on that. So same way, cranial implants, metal, you can see it here. And so far we have talking about multiple material. Probably a lot of people have talked about metal, plastic, and all. As I said, we are working on the complete workflow. So far metal. Of course, a few people are present in peak as well. So, but we are working with a company called 3D Ceram. They have a ceramic material. It's better biocompatible, also conductive, as well as we are able to achieve the proper mechanical property. Okay, so we have multiple applications, specifically in healthcare. We have a hydroxyapatite to print an implant. Let's say printing a maybe cranial metal is not a complete solution, so we can't do metal cranial plates for all the patients. Someone has to go for the therapy, and even metal things have some heat problem, and if unavoidably they are facing some kind of accidents, it's going to be completely impact on the patient head and other parts. And if it is a hydroxyapatite, so it's a self-sacrifice. So if you unavoidably you're facing some accident, it will break, it will not create an impact on your existing skulls. And as well as it have better compatibility, it will create an osseointegration between the implant and the bone. So we have some studies you can check in articles, in Google, you can see some of our white papers the 3D Ceram has done. So that's we are currently representing. This is not a case that I have done. The 3D Ceram is done for 150 cranial cases with a different thing for hydroxyapatite. So maybe there are some limitations on the size and all, but obviously HAP is it's not the less to create an implant with the same material of bone. So tricalcium phosphate we can do it, zirconia we can do it. Even zirconia, people are doing a lot of things on the dental application as well. And also like metal, ceramic. The next, I think one of the speakers has mentioned of the bioprinting. Yes, we are into bioprinting also. 3D system acquired Aluvi recently, and we are working with bioprinting with multiple bio inks. And currently, bioprinting works like a alternative for the drug testing. Instead of animal test, we have a multiple ink have react like a. It's not a replacement. Like we can't print a heart and put it in the patient, but we can print some material that will react like a heart. Okay, you can do the drug testing instead of doing with animals and all, and you can do a lot of medicine testing and all of those. And main thing is it will reduce your the time taken. If you say 6 to 12 months to do the animal testing, it will reduce a lot of time. And now Olivier is working on the scaffolds, and recently 3D STEM has worked with creating a half lungs with a very very complicated lattice scaffolding structures. And probably in that morning section Dilip has mentioned it. So this is where 3D system is going ahead with, and the person who invented the technology, founder of 3D system, Chakal. So he is now completely working on the bioprinting, and they are quite multiple things. Probably bioprinting is going to change a lot, and that create a good pathway to go for the next level of organ printing. And a lot of people are talking about point of care. Yes, a lot of people are working on it. I believe point of care setup is going to give a good solution for the hospital as well as the patient. Okay, when we are talking about the cost, everything, some way we can avoid the higher cost in the point of care. I would say the point of care is not a solution for all kind of need. I would say like models, guides. Okay, so that makes a more economical way to do that. So these are some of the application if you have a point of care. So this is our point of care approach on medical image software, designing software, along with 3D printers. Maybe I just put a 2 printer figure 4 and form labs. Maybe we can put a FDM if they want. We can put any printer we want. But the thing is, it has to serve the purpose. So I would say like this is just a basic one. And if they want to add a printer based on the running case, and do that, and specifically why we are pushing a point of care inside the hospital. For example, sometimes it's take more time. Okay, you have to transfer the data, and they have to plan it, they have to print it, and they have to transport it to your location. There are a lot of time will take it for the transportation. Accessibility is different. Doctor, they don't have time to follow and do things. If it is in a table, then how it works. And obviously it will make a affordable cost also. I'm sure about it. So as an initiative, we have done 3 setup, and So far, I can show one of our setup recently we have done in Shankara Cancer Hospital and Research Center in Bangalore. Okay, so they have done a lot of work they are doing it off. So we recently put a whole setup and trained the team, and they are working on the cases. In right side corner picture, you can see the surgeon is explaining to the patient of her own case. So obviously we are working in technology to assist the surgeons to better and a lot of things. But when we see some real cases has been done, when the patient is happy, then everything is goes on it. So, and I would say like that's a different experience, I would say. So yes, 3D printing, specifically in healthcare, a lot of things are happening. I would prefer a lot of things needs to be happen. I can see a lot of machines, materials, and all stuff. And I personally would encourage whenever I was interacting with the students or any other people, researchers, I would always tell them, no, we also need to concentrate on the application, because we can have 100 materials, we can have 100 technologies, but where we are going to use it. So we have to find the application. Application is also equally important, because without finding the problem, creating the solution, we can't use those materials. So probably we are also working on that with the multiple institution and all, as different companies, like my co-speakers represent different companies. We all representing a one technology. That's what I believe. And thank you, Dr. Shibu, for the opportunity. I hope I have given some idea and some things about land, and maybe the doctors and peoples to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful presentation, sharing diverse clinical case scenarios, and also highlighting some gray areas and future trends.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chinnan.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we all know that from the session that is started and we realized that the opportunity is immense in terms of what the technology can do. Also, to see that how this technology can benefit and how it is benefiting globally. So now that we also realize the importance of 3D technology, 3D technology envisages of 3D printing and 3D visualization. So Dr. Zayed is also one of the key respondents for VR. Doctor, thank you, and you're doing some great work in this space already with the government institutions in the country. But he was also very keen to know how we can collaboratively work together to see that how 3D technology and 3D technology, as in per se, 3D printing can also be taken to the larger extent in terms of what is required. So, since Dr. Zaid, since you're already working with various government institutions, simulation has always been taken one step ahead in terms of a role. And I'm sure while you are watching through and while you are listening through the presentations made by all the key respondents, they're doing some great work with 3D printing. But 3D visualization and simulation specifically, in COVID times also, you did mention, there are, these are high technology grade solutions which are offered and which are very high ticket size. So compared to that, to 3D printing is slightly left behind. What do you think, Doctor? Because I need to ask you this, because you are actually watching and you are actually gaining and you're absorbing it. What do you think? Where does 3D printing lack in terms of where we need to do our bit in terms of seeing that it gets that mass presence? Now that I will also want, Dr. Jean Francosis, who also joined from Francis, sir. Thank you so much for your presence, sir, and also Dr. Justin. They both are VR experts in their own area of domain of expertise. So we will also have a clear discussion to build on this, because somebody with a global presence and somebody who has done work in their own area of expertise in VR and AR is also somebody who could also share their insights on the subject. And that can be even after their presentation for a small discussion or a panel discussion, because inputs like these are definitely going to be helping us to take the course forward as a pathway. Because in the morning it was very clearly defined that our strategy is to build over this motto, that is democratizing 3D technology to benefit all. That's the key. And I think VR and AR is also getting that kind of attraction. So, yeah, Doctor, your thoughts on this, and then I will invite the two other gentlemen, also Dr. Jean, because he did ask me whether I can be the last because of the time, because it's early morning there in Italy, in Caribbean. Doctor, thank you so much for your presence. And Dr. Justin, though it is not too far, it is in Canada. The difference, the time zone is just 5 hours. Right? Thank you so much, sir, for your presence. We'll come to your presentation. But before that, Dr. Zaid, your thoughts. And then we will go to Dr. Justin and then Dr. G.
Okay.
In the Indian context.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Shibu. So I think with respect to simulation as well, the high fidelity simulation is yet to be absorbed or democratized in the market. But like you pointed out, for 3D printing, I believe one is the reach out. The second is the number of cases as they keep on increasing and as it starts coming in the limelight, along with some kind of studies to back up the results and the cost effectiveness. Like Ayushi rightly mentioned, that if you spread it across the departments, it becomes more cost effective. So I think these are some of the ways where we will see a lot of adoption in the next couple of years. And then of course through institutions like EIPOs who are trying to set up partnerships wherever possible, I think we will have some kind of good future in the next 2 to 5 years with respect to 3D technology.
Thank you so much, Zaid. And I think we will work together. Dr. Zaid is also one of our key respondents and also in our 3D Graphy panel. So that actually encourages us because we have doctors and surgeons and also researchers and scientists now that we have built over with time. Because it's important to work very closely with the key respondents and also end users who are experts who are looking at these solutions to come up with their expectations and then for us to work in confluence together. Thank you so much, Dr. Zaid. And you've been you've been a good moderator from the beginning to where it is actually going to conclude. But now I'll take the privilege to invite Dr. Justin Sutherland, who is actually joining us from Canada. So Dr. Justin is actually a VR specialist, and he has his company, and he's also the founder of Realize 3D. Realize Medical. So we are all trying to put 3D, but so nevertheless, Realize Medical is his company, and he's a VR expert. And good to have you, sir, on board. And now we will have your presentation to understand what all can be done with the VR. And is there a combination that a software company can also try and club in with your kind of a solution? Is there also, if that can also be looked at as an option? Because I think 3D printing and 3D VR and AR is going to complement each other going forward. And that is what we are trying to see and build over time in terms of the conscious effort of seeing if POC can also see this as a clear measure for patient satisfactory index. Very, very important. Because this is a time, because globally, I'm sure, doctor, in countries like Dr. Jean, from where he's coming, he's also a vascular surgeon, and he is also one of the key respondents in digital anatomy from UNESCO. So he comes in the epitome of understanding the importance of AR and VR. And I'm sure with this presentation we'll get more insights on the subject. But do you think POC, there can be a good combination and can complement both put together? Once you have answered this question, we'll have your presentation on, sir, please.
Great. So yeah, I absolutely think the technology is complementary. Actually, the part of the presentation is kind of explaining how the two things work together. And then they're almost two sides of the same coin. In terms of the benefit, so actually, I might just get right into the presentation because I talked exactly about this in the early slides. So
yeah, so we can start with the presentation.
Yeah. This is showing here. All right. So thank you very much for inviting me. I'm going to be talking about medical modeling and planning in virtual reality, but also a substantial portion of the talk is just explaining how the different aspects of virtual reality change the way that we do things, and then how it relates to things like 3D printing and the way that we're used to interacting with medical images. A lot of this talk came out of a question I had once that was, why is virtual reality any different than the typical reconstructions that we see? And I tried to think a lot about that question because for someone who's never tried VR in a headset, it's difficult for them to understand. And I hopefully at the end of this talk, you'll get a better understanding of why it's different. So I want to talk about the concept of interaction, which I see as the constant interplay between inputs and outputs. In terms of what I'll be talking about today, this has to do with the interaction between the sensory information that you might have and your ability to manipulate that information. So just like in the real world, you see an item, that's input, and then your manipulation of that item might be picking it up, that type of thing. So with medical imaging today, the typical interaction might look like this, where you're scrolling through slices. Basically, you have this piece of information, which is a volumetric scan, and then you use a computer screen that displays that, and then your manipulation of that might be some abstracted form through a mouse. So like scrolling on a scroll wheel, moving up and down, left and right, that type of thing. So then more recently, we've had the innovation of 3D printing, where we take information that's been derived from that image, and then we bring it into the real world, into a physical form. And there's a lot of interaction that's enabled by 3D printing, and this is what makes it so novel and useful. So for example, you can manipulate with your hands, right? You can even have like your individual fingers touching things and moving them around. On top of that, the actual sensory information that you get from it is substantially different. So you have a real 3D display of an object because it's there in the real world with you. But then you also have the tactile sense of touching it with your hands. And there's obviously some benefit to be gained from that in terms of our ability to understand the world. This is exactly the form in which we've interacted with things throughout our entire evolution. So if you can think about it as 3D printing taking 3D medical derived information and bringing it into the real world. In contrast, virtual reality is like taking yourself and putting it into the digital world. So it's almost like a difference in terms of the direction where the process is going. And so just a little note here about inputs, outputs, and virtual reality. When we look at medical images and how we interact with them, we take a scan, it's a volumetric scan, we view it in some abstracted form as a slice on a screen, and then our input to that system is typically a mouse with 2 degrees of freedom, up and down, left and right, and then 3 or more buttons. With virtual reality, we now have the same 3D information that we get with 3D printing, but then we have different ways of actually looking at the medical images themselves. So here you can see this plane that's kind of arrayed in a cube, and that's basically creating a multiplanar reformation of an image. But then in virtual reality, that actually has a physical correspondence in space. So it's not just, again, an abstracted form of the image, but you can move that plane through the cube to create any NPR that you like. On top of that, in terms of the inputs that we have into the system, we have either hand tracking or 6 degree of freedom tracked controllers. So you have a controller where you can move it around in space and change its orientation. So now you have 6 ways of creating positional information, and then any number of buttons and gestures that you might do as a result of that. So just to give an example of how we can create novel interactions with virtual reality, things that aren't possible in any other form, because we're bringing ourselves into this digital realm where we can basically create any scenario that we like. So this is an example of a really early experiment that we did at the Ottawa Hospital, where you have this flashlight that basically creates this X-ray effect, right? And technically what's happening is we have 2 scan sets in this scene. There's a CT and a T2 weighted MRI. And then you have this novel interaction where in the cone of effect of the flashlight, you're basically cutting away the CT and revealing the MRI with a certain color. And what this does is it gives this really realistic sense of having almost X-ray vision. This isn't actually clinically useful. Like, we don't imagine that doctors are ever going to be like shining X-ray flashlights on volume rendered scans of patients, but it's here to serve as an illustration of the types of new things you can do, because now you've enabled different interactions with these wide array of input schemes, as well as the different types of visualization that are afforded by immersive virtual reality system. So I want to talk a little bit about segmentation, which most people should be intimately familiar with if they're viewing these talks, which is basically the step where we assign portions of an image to a 3D model so that we can derive some more useful 3D content out of that. One of the things that we were interested in when we first started doing experiments at the Ottawa Hospital, which eventually became the company Realized Medical, was could the process of segmentation itself be helped by these novel interactions that are able to be done in virtual reality? So can we bring the benefit of these new interactions to further up the workflow before, rather than waiting until we actually have this 3D content to interact with it, can we do it earlier and then provide benefit that way? So the result of those efforts, sorry, going back here, was a system that we called Elucis. And this is basically, it starts as an image segmentation or medical modeling platform, but then it's also, in addition to that, a way to interact with the 3D content that's been made. You can basically imagine it as the entire 3D printing workflow, from importing a medical image to the actual interaction with that 3D content for some clinical purpose in one system, right? And could we create a virtual reality system that does this? So the first step would be to change how we do image navigation. In this video, you can see that we have basically this cube that contains a CT scan. And then you have a physical surface of a desk, which is denoted by that green square, and an image plane on that desk. And so by moving the actual volume of the image through that plane, you can create any multiplanar reformation that you like, but you can do it in a really flexible and powerful way. You see also that there's this overlaid ghost effect, and that ghost effect is there to provide more 3D context to the position of the image, because now that we're not constraining ourselves to just axial, sagittal, and coronal orientations, we need to better understand what it is that we're seeing on that plane. Of course, you can have the typical ways of changing window and level, but then in a virtual reality environment, you see there, you have a wide array of options in terms of how you present a user interface. You have this whole space of 3D to work with for that purpose. So then we can take that and go a step further and create segmentation tools, except now, instead of working with a mouse or even a pen on a Wacom tablet, you're almost working like a sculptor would, where they have their physical sculpture in front of them and they're using tools or their hands to manipulate it. And so what we can do is create a system where you have simultaneous 3D visualization of the segmentation that you're creating, as well as the ability to input in 3D your desired operation. And so by having this highly localized but precise way of inputting your desired change to the model, it creates this very intuitive system that works very effectively. And in many times, it's actually 10 times faster than doing it on a conventional screen, just because we've enabled the user input into the system. And then going one step further, then we have the final 3D information that we'll be using, or we have this environment that we can create this content in. We can create all these novel interactions that might be used for some pre-procedure planning activity. So you can see with the wave of the hand and multiple participants, we could be creating 3D content. So for this example, it's a skull, and then simulating what a craniotomy might be. And then almost immediately, you can be interacting with people, even across the world, that are connected in this shared virtual environment to be looking at information. And you can see here, like with this clip sphere as an example, or the markups that you can draw in 3D, these are interactions that aren't possible in any other environment, right? So you lose the benefit of having the tactile sense that you gain from 3D printing, but you gain a wide array of different options in terms of how you might interact with this information and what additional content you might create. Another example here of where a digital environment shines is the ability to have time series information, so a 4D scan of a heart. And then you can also get inside of the content that you might be discussing. So here, people are in the left ventricle and they're talking about how the blood flows through the mitral valve and then up into the aortic valve. And then another example here of that clip sphere that lets you manipulate the information in ways that just aren't possible in the real world. And so really the goal for the whole field of virtual reality in medicine over the next decade or more is to really explore these different interactions that are possible and see which ones might be useful, that might have some clinical benefit to enable activities that we've been doing in a better way, or even ones that we had never considered before. So just to finish up the talk, I'll go through some example applications of how this type of application, in this case it's ours, Elucis, but it could be any number of potential future applications, could be used to aid pre-procedure planning activities or how we understand pathological anatomy. So here's a clip here from the SCMR conference in 2022. This is Rena Ghosh from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and she's talking about how 4D modeling might be really useful with virtual reality and why that might be so.
With advances in technology, we can now use the entire 4D data set for model creation. While a year ago this was certainly possible, one would have had to separately segment and model each phase of the cardiac cycle. Now, as demonstrated in the video using Realize Med product Elucis, you can use thresholding to segment anatomy from each phase of the cardiac cycle all at the same time. This is extremely important because oftentimes the structures we are modeling are quite dynamic, and to truly represent the anatomy for the purposes of procedural planning, it's important to see how those structures morph across each heartbeat. With advanced
So another example is a study that's been taking place over the last year at the Ottawa Hospital in their neuroradiology department, which is the visualization and creation of 3D models for glioblastomas from MRIs. The purpose of this is to assess the benefit that might exist for surgical planning for people to, one, have the tools to create the 3D models very quickly, but then also have a virtual environment with which to interact with those models for the purpose of pre-procedure planning. A similar study is being done in the gynecological surgery department at the Ottawa Hospital, investigating the novel use of both MRIs and then the virtual reality model creation and model interaction process from those MRIs for deep endometriosis. So this is a field where typically there's not that much 3D printing. The group here at the Ottawa Hospital does do 3D printing, but I gather that they're one of the few in the world that actually do this for this indication. There's also a great deal of potential benefit for virtual reality applications in orthopedic surgery. And so there's a study ongoing in terms of the multidisciplinary surgical planning of complex orthopedic cases using virtual reality, in this case, having multimodal images, so both MRI and CT, to be able to delineate soft tissues as well as the surrounding bony anatomy has been proven quite useful. And so there's been a number of cases that have actually been done on a research basis to see how a multidisciplinary interaction where you have multiple people, such as MSK radiologists, orthopedic surgeons, in some cases, even neurosurgeons, when you have odd neuro-derived tumors in the thorax, all interacting in a virtual reality environment to be able to see if this type of interaction benefits the clinical case. So here's just an example of what the visualization of a case for the purpose of surgical planning might look like for a large tumor. I believe this might be a sarcoma. So you can have all the different pieces of anatomy, just like 3D printing, except you can visualize it in different ways, reorient it, but then even start moving things around. So just because the anatomy was derived from the image and it's tied to that location doesn't mean that it has to stay there. So there's an infinite amount of flexibility that's possible in a digital environment in terms of how you might visualize, interact with, or plan various procedures. So hopefully that's given you a flavor of the different things that virtual reality can enable. It really is kind of like the digital twin or cousin of 3D printing. And you imagine that you might use 3D printing for a group discussion around a table or to give a piece of anatomy to a patient that they can take home and then understand what they're doing. Whereas virtual reality might be something that can be used to connect people across large distances and to provide an unfettered environment where you aren't constrained by the constraints of the real world. Thank you.
Doctor, may I ask you to start with you are a VR specialist, Dr. Zaid. So, but what do you think about 3D technology overall for the medical industry going forward? So that will also have everything to do with 3D printing or simulation and VR, all of that put together. Your thoughts?
Yes, thank you. I think a couple of things worth noting here is that the pandemic has accelerated the adoption of these newer technologies. I think that is a fact that is now universally being accepted. And the other thing is with respect to predictable treatment outcomes. Now, this has been very much possible with the use of simulation and 3D printing technologies. especially incorporating virtual reality, like Justin mentioned. So it is definitely going to benefit the healthcare system nationally as well as internationally. And then we'll have standardization, which is very important, because right now we have a lot of disparity in terms of the health outreach.
Following that, Jai, what is your thoughts? Maybe you can also share your thoughts. Maybe each of us to share, to build this from here in terms of what is expected.
Yes, Dr. Shiva. I think it was good. Actually, we have to create more awareness and also, kind of activities more than a kind of commercial. We have to conduct a lot of technical activities with each specialty, and as a team, we can work for the technology. Sometimes we can complement each other, and it has to go in, different ways to reach. It's not a small small thing to do that. So we have a wide market, and there are a lot of specialties, a lot of things are there. So creating awareness, it's we need more awareness in that, and that's what I said. Now, creating awareness about the technology and the solution is more important. We need more people as to adopt with it. We need more people as to start with the services, point of care, and all too.
So with awareness, we will also need more case studies, right, Doctor? Right?
Yes. So I would say, like, whenever even we are also doing the same, and I will also recommend others to do the same. Whenever we're talking about explaining few application or few software or hardware material doesn't reach right. So doing one benchmark with one kind of hospital, it always works away, because it's better to have a test drive than reading about the specification of the car. The same way, whether they can drive it, they can feel it, then they will understand the real potential of the technology. So that's our duty to do that. So that's the right way to reach a good impact on the technicals.
Ayushi, your closing remarks?
Yep. So I would just like to say that I think this was a very good opportunity for all of us. Thanks to Dr. Shibu for arranging this, a conference, especially on dental as well as medical, pertaining to the 3D technologies and, what is upcoming. So we might feel that, VR and AR, that's like so fancy, but it's actually, it's being adopted in the West. And we are just trying to kind of bring it here in India. I've had the opportunity to, see the interface of Realize Medical in Amrita, because they have that set up there. So when you actually feel it firsthand, then you realize the impact which it makes. I'd also like to thank Dr. Zahid for moderating the whole session from 3:00. He has been there, and also I would say thanks to James as well, because he was the first speaker and he has been online till now. So thank you, James, for just hanging out till here. And yes, I think for India market specifically, just like to reiterate the point that 3D technology, AR, VR, they might sound expensive, and they might, you might feel that, oh, it's only for tech savvy people, but that's not it. It has actually got real time benefits. It can impact patient lives to a great extent. So the key is what, as Irai also said, is creating that awareness at the root point, and also to add on what Dr. Shibu is also doing is to work with policymakers. That we need to create such policy which would create this adoption pretty early, as it should be. So in East and West, it's actually every other hospital would have at least a 3D point of care lab. But in India, the hospitals shirk from this because the policy is also not kind of supporting them. So if it can be a top to down approach instead of bottom to up, because the surgeons here in Indian hospitals, they don't have that much of a say, or they're not that much of a decision maker. They just focus on the surgeries and just treating patients. So if the policy changes, if there is a makeshift change in the policy, that would really increase the rate of the adoption of whether it's 3D technology or any other new technology like VR, AR, or even mixed reality. So I think that would really help us all. And I think Dr. Shibu is doing a fantabulous job in that front as well, that he's trying to, communicate and create that much of an awareness at the policy maker level.
Dr. John, Dr. John is the 3D Graphy is the Uber of 3D printing in India.
Yeah.
The Uber, the Zomato.
Somewhat started, Dr. I mean, we are all collectively an important part of the entire ecosystem. I have just taken the interest to get everybody along. That's the intent. But that is very, very important because everybody has a role to play. For example, now that the technology companies who are really doing a real hard work, as Ayushi mentioned, and also Irai, the software solutions in terms of the offering, and then to also have Trinity share what is what should be the right technology to offer the end customer. So everybody constitutes a larger interest in terms of offering these solutions. So everybody is busy doing that. But I think what we as a media company we are doing is our role is different. Our role is different, but a conscious effort to work together to see that how we can benefit the end user. The last mile is very, very important. So since everybody has their own roles to play, we are also doing our bit. There's nothing extraordinarily different that we are doing, but somebody had to take that initiative forward, so we are doing it. And the good thing is, interestingly, Dr. Zaid, in the morning we had a very clear claim coming from the Association of Healthcare Providers of India, and I was privileged to work with them for the last 1.5, 2 years, almost 2.5 years, even before the COVID started. But COVID actually helped us to connect better because we did almost 23 to 24 events in the last, in these COVID times. Though sometimes it happens that, we don't get to physically meet people, but when you are actually interacting virtually, you also get a sense to be always connected, and then to get an opportunity that now which things have slightly opened up is only helping us to build from where we started. So I think being in touch, being informed, sharing the awareness, spreading the awareness is always going to definitely help in the larger context in terms of what is expected. So yes, so here is a plan that they are looking at, starting a pilot project with 70 hospitals in the country, and we will be instituting a channel to work with all the hospitals. And also, Dr. Zaid, why not even you? Because you've been actually offering solutions in the VR and the AR space. We can work, and we always discussed, and we always been discussing this. So MUHS is also something that we should be taking the course forward, and then centrally, because our intention is to work centrally to start initiating on this. And slowly, I think things are opening up. It's a good sign. And we will definitely have a role to play to do that. And today, in these 2 days, we will be sending the content that we've been able to capture from these events to also share with each of these associations. So we have 15 active medical associations. In the morning, we had one gentleman actually even share insights on tissue engineering and also this pupil and cornea, 3D printing cornea. Now, I did have an opportunity to discuss that with the ophthalmologist in my certain context, but I probably would want to introduce them also for the association, and that's where VR can also be taking into consideration, and also 3D printing. Why not? If we can actually have these 3D printed, tissue based materials which can be useful to print it. So I think we need to look for opportunities in terms of trying to connect dots and then build from there. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for your active participation, and also Dr. Zaid for being a good host and taking the series, because we had back-to-back sessions and parallel sessions. Somewhat, thank you so much for your presence, and also Parinita for your presence, sharing your insights. Also, Virai for your presence and also sharing. There's immense work that you guys are all doing, and also James for his time in terms of the extended work he's doing in VR and AR and dental. That's going to be like a new chapter, and people are looking at that as a new thing in India. But yeah, why not? Because we are also discussing with the Indian Dental Association. Dr. Doble also joined in the morning, but he couldn't come live, though he was backstage. We discussed of a lot of things working together. Yeah, so I think it's good times that we are all in, and wishing all of you a good weekend. And tomorrow is a Sunday, but tomorrow also we are busy in this event. So have a great day. Do join. You can use the same link, and you can join tomorrow's session also if at all you have time in to be present. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you, all the speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.